Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I am the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 671 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again while the Russian ships happen to be blowing up.
All of our boats keep blowing up, and we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, starting off with some of the biggest news that we have gotten over the entire month. A Russian landing ship was destroyed by a Ukrainian missile attack, which blew up some kind of an ammunition depot inside, well, an ammunition stowage inside of the ship, completely destroying it down to the waterline. It is still sitting inside of its port right now in pieces, and also a large amount of the ship has now made it on land as multiple different pieces of shrapnel. I'll be showing y'all the first video we have here of the landing ship being destroyed. And let me make sure that we get it. There we go. There we go. Literally in 3 frames, it turns into a small nuclear explosion, but here's the clip. Here we can see our landing ship, and I believe it's a Rapucha-class landing ship that was on fire, and then in a literal second, it turns into a ball of flame, rocking the entire port of Feodosia and sending shrapnel flying for miles.
Вот зря мы сюда пошли, там осколки, блин, летят.
Поэтому говорю, голову.
Нифига себе. Тихо, ты чего?
Офигеть.
Now, I gotta tell you, that thing blew up bigger than the Christmas address, but beyond that, one thing that is very interesting to note is that apparently this ship, which is an amphibious landing ship, but it's really kind of being used nowadays as a supply transport ship, it was apparently laden with explosives from what we know, because that's where this massive boom came from, was from inside of the ship's cargo holds, which exploded. There's not really a lot of things that Russian landing ships would carry that is explosive. Usually they would carry something like tanks or supply trucks to try and drop them off on a shoreline where the Russian Navy has just landed, or the Russian naval infantry just landed. But in an explosion like this, we're getting a very good idea that not only did they destroy a ship, but they probably destroyed hundreds of tons of ammo in this single attack that the Ukrainians successfully conducted. Moving on to our next little bit of news, we also got to see a fire that was happening at the docks as a result of that explosion. I'll be showing you all this right here. And you can see the fire on the landing ship here. Now, quick context, because we haven't actually shown y'all exactly where this is, but this explosion happened in the small port of Feodosia, which is very interesting, at least on a naval perspective here in the war, because usually the Russian Black Sea Fleet's ships operate out of Sevastopol, Novorossiysk, or, on very rare instances, out of the city of Kerch. Although Kerch is a very rare deployment area for most Russian ships in the Black Sea Fleet. Feodosia, however, it never really shows up on the map. In fact, it's hardly ever even spoken of most of the time when talked about Russian naval warfare. But, funnily enough, there is a small mooring here made specifically for naval forces. And you can actually see one of the Russian Navy's auxiliary ships right there. From what we understand, the ship was hit and exploded right at this mooring here on the very northern side, from the opposite end of the breakwater. This is where that Rapucha-class landing ship was when it was hit by the missile attack. And that's what we're watching right now in this video. And we can see some of the ammunition or fuel stored on the ship exploding right there. And we can see that the camera person is having a very hard time holding this camera steady. You see them watching as the fire continues to roar. From what we understand, while this explosion was massive, it had a moderate amount of damage caused to the naval port itself, or at least a small part that is used by naval forces. The explosion was largely directed upwards into the sky, weirdly enough, and that's why the shrapnel was spread out over miles of ground throughout the area of the Crimean Peninsula, and also that's why the explosion was so fantastic looking. And in a minute, I'll also prove to y'all the case, because pretty much the entire upper part of the ship is gone. It's just blown away, and only what's below the waterline still exists. Well, you hear some occasional explosions. At the moment, it just seems to be a steady roar of flame coming out of the ship. The Russians reported that only moderate damage was caused to the ship. We'll prove that wrong here in literally the next piece of news. You can see it continuing to roast. And by the way, I forgot to tell y'all, this actually happened on Christmas Day for the Russians, well, specifically for the Ukrainians and for most of the world, except for the Russians who celebrate Christmas on, I believe, January 7th. But with that, that's the end of that little clip showing a continuing of the blaze that was caused by the ship in its landing, well, at its moorings. And now I'm going to show y'all what the ship looked like before and after. This picture came out in the middle of today, by the way, but let me make sure to show y'all the before and after. So, here is what the ship looked like before. As you can see, it looks like a fairly normal Rapucha-class landing ship, complete with all of the trimmings and everything that comes along with it. Now, at the bottom, this is what's left, and it's not a lot. We can see that pretty much the entire ship has been completely reduced to literal rubble. Also, by the way, it looks like we're suffering some lag. Actually, not. YouTube's just kidding us. They're pulling our chain, Matthew. There's no lag. There's no lag at all. But here we can see at the bottom of the screen the damage caused to the ship. It appears that nothing exists above the waterline, like I was just saying. A small amount of the superstructure, the bridge, as well as one of the smokestacks, and also one of the turrets on the very stern of the ship has ended up remaining above the waterline, but everything else sank below it. From what we understand, this wasn't the fire melting the steel, well, really the aluminum and steel that the ship is made out of, and making it fall into the waterline. This was actually caused by the explosion of the cargo holds, which led to practically most of the ship being torn into a large amount of splinters. But beyond that, it is showing that a massive amount of damage was caused to the ship, and I would have to say that I think the Russians are a little stretching the truth just a little bit in saying that it was only moderate damage. Matthew, would you sail this boat?
I would sell it.
You would sail it or sell it?
No, I would sell it. I wouldn't sail it because it's not in good shape anymore.
Well, Matthew, moving on from that, I believe you are an expert on ship appraisals, if I'm not mistaken.
This one is worth a good $5. Maybe a good song, too. $5 in a song, and you can have the rest.
Man, 1 second. Let me start. Let's see. Ireland's a very funny place, sir. But anyways, moving on from that.
Not that song. You get nothing for that one.
Man, you get nothing, said the man from the Daily Mail. But nevertheless, this Rapucha-class landing ship has ended up being destroyed. And the Ukrainians were very happy about this, because destroying this ship before the end of the year means that over the course of 2023 alone, 20% of Russia's surface fleet has been destroyed by the Ukrainians in the Black Sea. That's a large amount. That's 1 in every 5 ships that the Russians had has been destroyed just in this year alone. And that's, I believe, not including all of the losses from last year, including the Moskva, which was the flagship of the fleet. This is great news, and certainly moving us on into brighter waters, or but not for the Russians, brighter from the explosion of the ship, but not really bright in any other regard. But let me show you all something else that was very interesting. We got to see a satellite picture aftermath of the port before and after the explosion. This was before. This is after. So you can see that not really a lot changed in the port infrastructure. It appears that, once again, the assumption is correct. The damage caused to the port infrastructure is probably moderate. We do know that the explosion most likely sent shrapnel flying into a lot of the surrounding buildings and cranes, but that could probably be repaired within a few days or maybe a week if the Russians are really pushing it. However, you all may be able to notice that the Rapucha-class landing ship pictured here disappeared in the second picture, and there's only a small bit of smoke coming from where it was. It's almost like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. And honestly, at this point, I have to say that I believe the Russians have bought every single one of their weapons from Acme, because it's literally gone. It's just not there anymore. And while we saw the superstructure in the last picture, in this picture, you can't even discern the superstructure from the rest of the waterline. So that thing is gone for good, and hopefully for the better. I hope it's for the better, because, you know, it's good. But the ship is still seen. You know, I actually am kind of lying here to y'all. I'm saying that the ship can't really be seen anymore, and not really a lot of it lasts above the waterline. As a matter of fact, I pretty much may as well as flat out lie to you. I'm going to have to make a YouTuber apology video for that, because parts of the ship are actually still visible, and visible to many people. The Russians always want to make sure to prove to the Russian public, or at least the Ukrainian public inside of the occupied areas, that the Russians are doing good. And so to make sure that they got the point across, that the ship was A-okay, they ended up spreading out pieces of it across the mainland, so that way everyone could get a look at this ship and know, hey, at least it's made of steel. It ought to be in good shape. But let me make sure that y'all see this clip right here. Let me read the subtitles for y'all as well. Numerous fragments of the Novocherkassk landing ship can be seen in the vicinity of Feodosia port. It was damaged tonight. These quite large fragments can be found in Feodosia. By the way, such a piece of debris struck almost a meter into the ground. Can you imagine how severe the blow was? The wind panes of 5-story houses were blown out. And I gotta tell you, that's something else right here. It's 3 feet into the ground. What you're seeing is literally the tip of the iceberg of what this sheet of metal is, because most of it is actually underground. And that's the kind of sheer force that the explosion of the Novocherkassk had. That it was blowing this large chunks of shrapnel into the city, and not only that, with enough speed even coming back down from its upwards trajectory to fling it 3 feet into the ground. And that's not the only piece. This is probably one of the more notable ones inside the city, because the ship blew up so thoroughly it was literally just blown to bits. But there was another piece that landed literally, and also this marker is a little inaccurate, let me move it closer to the port. This one was actually found pretty much on the very outskirts of the port of Feodosia in this clip. This is a kilometer away.
That's some thick metal.
That is. That's like I would say that's about maybe a half or 3/4 of an inch thick steel that was flung an entire kilometer. And look how big it is. It's a huge piece.
Ivan might want to take this down to the pawn shop and see what he can get.
You know, this man is probably about to put this on his lot or something, you know? That's what they do. But, damn. Y'all gotta imagine, that explosion we saw in the first clip that I showed y'all had enough force behind it. It sent chunks that big, that thick, flying through the sky an entire kilometer away from this video. And let me make sure we get the measurements accurate here, just to make sure that we can put this marker in the right spot. A mile is, well, a kilometer is about 0.8 of a mile. So that's how far away that shrapnel was flung right there. So we're actually going to move that even closer, because I was eyeballing a kilometer. Apparently my eyeballing of a kilometer is a lot farther. But it's about that far. Let me put that into actual street view to show y'all. So that piece of shrapnel went from about here all the way over here. That's how far it was flung from the explosion. It's nearly 3/4 of an inch thick, flying an entire kilometer, and it's about 4 feet long and about 2 feet tall. Imagine the weight of that piece of steel and the kind of explosive force you have to fling a sheet of steel that far. That is a lot. And it's showing that that ship, once again, was completely destroyed. Now, the Russians, of course, have tried to downplay this. So y'all all know that that part of the story was about to be coming, but they have been downplaying this as much as they possibly can. They said that the ship was moderately damaged, nothing serious came out of it. I'm having a feeling that that story is not going to last too long, because the proof that the ship was destroyed down to the waterline is literally sitting in the port right now, and the Russians will not be able to salvage it and move it out until maybe 2 or 3 months from now. So going off of that, I'm sure that the Russians are probably about to say the ship was completely obliterated in an explosion from an unknown Ukrainian missile, and probably a decent amount of the sailors that manned that ship died in the explosion. Probably all of them did. The ones that at least were on board ship. Some of them may have been on shore leave somewhere, you know, maybe in a bar getting drunk or something, but beyond that, everyone who was on that ship has probably been killed at this point, and the ship has been reduced to nothing more than shards of metal across the port of Feodosia. At the same time, the Ukrainians have been, of course, priding themselves on the achievement of destroying a massive number of ships. This is a little infographic that was put out today of all of the ships that the Russians have lost over the course of the war. And you can see that actually half of them were lost this year. And I would actually say that rather than the Moskva, a notable amount of them a very important amount of them were lost this year, especially in some particular categories. We'll be skipping over the first part of the, well, actually, really quickly, let me clarify this, because y'all are going to notice that the Novichokhovsk shows up twice on this list. That's because the Novichokhovsk was actually hit in Berdyansk, which y'all may remember, because that was at the literal beginning of the war, and we didn't hear anything about the Novichokhovsk since then. Some of y'all will remember when the port of Berdyansk was going to be used as a bit of a, well, hey, look at that, Matthew, look at this. On Google Earth, they actually caught a satellite picture of one of the oil silos that was burning, like, I think 3 or 4 months ago when the Ukrainians attacked them and blew them up.
Now that's ironic. That's like they caught the exact moment. What were the odds of that?
What are the odds? But getting off of that, many of y'all will remember that that one Rapucha class landing ship was hit at Berdyansk way at the beginning of the war. We actually have a thumbnail that showed a part of that attack way back then. That ship was actually the Novichokhovsk. It ended up being moderately damaged in that attack. It was actually quite severely damaged. A lot of the superstructure had to be rebuilt. But once it was rebuilt, it's been operating as a supply ship still, even up until now. And that's why it shows up twice, because on the 24th of March, along with the other Rapucha-class landing ship at Berdyansk, it was damaged. It then left, and then it was destroyed, well, actually today. So pretty good. So that's why it's showing up twice. Every other ship only shows up once because they were hit and immediately destroyed. But moving on to this year alone, they were able to destroy completely 2 Rapucha-class landing ships. They were also able to destroy a Kilo-class submarine and a Karakut-class destroyer. Overall, it has been a very successful year for the Ukrainians, and over the course of practically the entire war, they've ended up destroying around a quarter of the Russians' surface vessel fleet. This is all big news. Very, very big news, especially for the Ukrainians, because the Russian Black Sea Fleet allows the Russians to blockade Ukrainian ports, stop further supplies from coming in, and not only that, it also allows them to launch more missile attacks onto Ukrainian infrastructure over the course of the war, which is strategically pertinent for the Russians, whether it be against the civilians or against the military. It tries to further the Russian military's aims, and destroying a literal quarter of the Russian Black Sea Fleet means that there is not a lot for them to work with left. 1 in every 4 ships are now gone, and a lot of the ships that they have at this point are mostly, weirdly enough, most of them are actually surface combat vessels. Most of their logistic ships, a lot of the Rapucha-class ships have been completely destroyed and put out of action. And that means that the Russians now have a lot less to work with supply-wise, and that may also start to hinder the Russian armed forces on land and put a lot more strain on the ground supply lines. But moving on from all of this news and talking about the Black Sea Fleet attacks and the destruction of the Novichokhovsk, which is big news, there is a lot of big news coming out of other parts of Ukraine. And also, there's little bits, snippets of big news coming out of Rossiyskyi Federatsyi. And let me take y'all there, because in a part of Russia, I put this in Tambov, but it's an unknown location for the large part. Inside the town of Tambov, we got to see that a Russian soldier who was wounded quite severely in the war ended up getting some compensation. He was given...
They got some onions?
He got 1 sack of onions and 2 sacks of potatoes.
Oh, he's so lucky for that.
Very blessed, Bliet. Instead of getting his 3.3 million rubles, he instead got the equivalent in food, which is 1 sack of onion and 2 sacks of potato. Now, I've got to tell y'all this. The Russians, with these kinds of a compensation system, might actually be putting the VA to shame. But beyond that, another thing is that those onions actually kind of look, kind of mid. Like, they're not even good-looking onions. It looks like someone just literally picked them up from the market and just dropped them off here.
It really does.
I mean, it's kind of poo-poo. It's kind of a little dookie. I mean, and every time, Matthew, they try and take advantage of the gift, when they cut the onions, this man is going to cry. And he's going to cry for 2 reasons. Because the onions make you cry, and also because he got screwed over by the Russian government, like every other Russian soldier has been. But hey,
he'll probably cry without the cutting of the onions. He'll probably just cry for the hell of it.
Man, he's going to be in there crying. And his wife's going to be like, what are you crying about? He's going to be like, shut up and make me an onion. I want to cry even harder. But anyways, moving on from that, and on into our next little bit of news. While Russia doesn't celebrate Christmas with the rest of the Western world, they celebrate it on the 7th of January. One thing is very interesting is that, like the West, they have Christmas celebrations leading up to Christmas. And Father Frost has been making some appearances, but not like he did last year. This year, he's making appearances in combat gear.
Oh, Santa Claus is getting a little rugged out here.
Santa Claus is getting a little rugged, Blade. He's going to freeze this girl. She's going to be like, can I get presents? He's going to be like, you can get frostbite, you dim. But anyways, we can also see a couple of interesting things. One, it looks like he has a pistol holster. Two, he has on probably asbestos mittens, I would assume. Considering it's Russia, it has to be an asbestos mitten. And then also, he has on the modern, like, low-cut tactical helmet, which I honestly don't like him. Hot take, I know. Many people like them. I don't. But beyond that, you can see that they're up to their usual schemes of trying to militarize the kids. You may also notice that these kids are Russian cadets, which means that they're kind of, being indoctrinated a little bit into the system. Now, I do have to say, some people are going to be like, well, U.S. has that, and I know that they have that because I was in the JROTC in high school, which is like the U.S. equivalent to what this is for the Russians, but I've got to be honest with you, the JROTC, compared to the Russian cadets, is nowhere close in comparison to the kind of propaganda and indoctrination that is done here. Honestly, most JROTCs hardly even lean into the idea of patriotism much. At least ours did. And, it talked about it a little bit, but hardly at all. Ours was actually focused a lot on, like, 401ks for some reason. I'm not knocking that, though. That was actually some good information. But still, it was like, oh, okay. Nevertheless, Father Frost, dressed up in tactical gear, the Russians got a Russian, that's just what they do. But moving on from that little bit of news, moving on out of Russia, because I can only show y'all so much of Russia at a time, because it's really strenuous on the mind, and I have to agree, I can only handle so much of it. We're going to be moving on from Russia and on into our location unknowns, because we have some pretty interesting ones. And starting off with our first one, we got to see some Ukrainian special forces of the security service. Hey! As opposed to B. Hey. And here we can see them. Look at them. Now, that is a very nice AR foregrip. Not foregrip, handguard.
The rails?
Yeah, the rails. I like that. You don't see a lot of them like that anymore. Usually they're like M-lock rails all over, and then you have one Picatinny on top. I like the ones where it's all Picatinny all around. And then some people say, I don't like it feeling like a cheese grater. Have you ever heard of like a Picatinny cover from like Knight's Armory? I mean, like those are a thing. You can just put that over them. But I like that.
I will say the only downside of the quad Picatinny rails like that is that they are pretty heavy most of the time. Like my Daniel has the quad rails like that on it, and it can get heavy when you're trying to hold it for a long time.
That's true. I will not disagree with that. They are a little heavy, but there is a workaround to that. Let me go type in the FN M4A1 because the FN M4A1, there we go. And let me go show y'all this because this is actually a civilian reproduction, so it's in semi-automatic, of the FN contract that was made for the Army. And there is a way to cut down on the weight of these Picatinny rails, which is just to shorten the length that they have. And you can see that on FN M4s made for the Army, or really your Army standard issue M4, they cut down the Picatinnies to really only cover about half of the barrel. I think that's actually a smart move because, honestly, you don't need that much Picatinny. Because you can put a flash, like, if you put a flashlight on one side, there's not really a lot more that you're going to be throwing on that one side of the railing. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have, like, 9 inches of Picatinny when you only really need about 6 or 5, and it cuts down on the weight heavily. That's one thing I think is smart on the US M4 side of things, but nevertheless, I think it is a nice look to have long Picatinny rails. But beyond that, we can also see some other things. Like, for example, this very interesting looking AR, which I don't know, it looks like, now, I'm going to have our in-house expert, because I know he's an expert, Jay Bagwell, comment on this, but that looks a little bit like a monolithic upper. I cannot tell for sure, but if it is, that is a very nice AR, and maybe it's even piston-driven, which would be a really cool feature as well. But moving on from that little picture, and on to our next one, we can see him holding the same rifle in this one. Is that a microdot? Is that a microdot?
Kind of looks like a red dot to me, like a full size.
That looks like a microdot a little bit, like the one we have on the P90. And if so, ears. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's not really that great. But with that, We're moving on into our last little picture where we can see him posing with his AR. Apparently, this is the favorite AR of the group. And then we can see 3 other guys in the background, all of them wearing nods, and of course, a part of the Special Forces. Really cool overall. And I gotta say, it's great to see that they were having a fun time out there in the snow. Moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknowns, we also got to see that the first real vehicular support from Japan arrived today. The Embassy of Japan in Kyiv reported that the Type 73 Jeeps have arrived. The Type 73 is kind of the Japanese equivalent to the M151 Mutt or the Humvee in US service. They're kind of neat looking. I'm not going to lie, I kind of like them a little bit more than the Jeep. But let me show you what the Type 73 looks like. Type 73. And let me go. Oh no. I forgot that everything in Japanese service is called the Type 73, so let me go type in the Type 73 light truck, because that's what it's actually called. Let's see here. Here we go. This is a Type 73. It kind of looks like a modernized Japanese Jeep.
Oh, it's kind of different looking. I really don't know if I like that, to be honest.
What about this one?
It looks better with the cover on the back, but it's still a little bit, the front end ain't cutting it.
Well, what about this one? It's literally just an M151 Mutt.
That looks better. It kind of looks like the Willys.
You know, actually, the early Type 73s really were. I mean, what they are is M151 Mutts. And the M151 Mutts were like the US upgrade to the Jeep, and these things were in service, I think, from like the late 50s all the way up until the Humvee replaced them in the mid to late 80s. So these things were incredibly common in the US military and a lot of Western militaries around the world, and Japan was one of those countries. They ended up, like they did with everything, kind of modifying the Mutt into their own vehicle and then further modifying it and upgrading it into the modern-looking Type 73s like this one right here. But under the hood, it's pretty much a Mutt. Still, they're neat. I like them. And it's good to hear that they finally got some in. I don't know if these are the only ones, though, because they didn't show a lot of them. There's only 5 of them that we got to see on picture. But it is great to see that the Japanese are providing some kind of material support, and hopefully it will be helping them out in the long run in this little war. Sadly, though, I do have to kind of put a downer on this. Vehicles like these usually only survive about 2 weeks of frontline service, and that's why I kind of find it that, like, I don't mean to degrade any kind of support, because any support's better than no support, but providing vehicles to the armed forces of Ukraine is kind of a pit for most things. Boats usually survive, from what I hear, like 2 months. So that's different. And tanks survive a lot longer as well. But vehicles like these that are kind of on the car level, they only end up surviving about 2 weeks. Honestly, I feel like, trying to get these there, this is a small number. 5 of them means that if you just gave one Type 73 to one squad, and you just held the rest of the other 4 in replacement, this is going to last a Ukrainian squad on the front lines probably about 10 weeks. And that's not that long when you think about it, and especially when you spread these things out into the Ukrainian armed forces like they will be. In total, all of these Type 73s are only going to last about 2 weeks. I feel like these kinds of vehicles require governments to support in massive numbers, sending them in the thousands or even the tens of thousands to really make any kind of an impact on the vehicular situation, because piecemealing them and sending in like 5 at a time or 2 at a time is having such a minuscule effect on the front lines that it's not even really worth sending them. Yeah, and it will improve one squad for like 2 weeks, but the impact is really superficial when you're talking about something that small. Sending in, like, for example, an MRAP, and that's a different story, because MRAPs are proven to survive longer because of their armor protection, among several other factors. They end up surviving usually about a month and a half, or 2 months for that matter. But once again, it is great to see, regardless of how long this will last, that they did make it there, and hopefully this will be the beginning of even more Japanese support in the future, through physical means, not monetary means. But with that, we're going to be... And also, Ari Sweeney said only 5? The only 5 that we saw in the pictures, because we saw these 2 back here, and we also saw some kind of a tractor vehicle that they loaded on as well, and then we saw another 3 on another trailer. And these are the only ones that were pictured. So we're assuming that there are only 5 Type 73s that were brought from Japan to Ukraine. But there could be more. We don't really know. But beyond that, we're now moving on from that little bit of location unknown news and on into our next one where we got to see something really cool, which is a Polish Oncilla armored car. I'm going to pull up a real picture of this because I know we have a video, but they're really cool. And let me go grab it. The Dozer B. And let's see here. Wait, hang on. That's not it. That's not it. Let's see. Let me go make sure to get a good picture of this thing. Here we go. This thing was actually designed in Ukraine, but it's built in Poland. I'm literally just reading the caption down there, but nevertheless, is a really cool looking little armored car. And I was like, neat, that's a really cool indigenous design. It looks simple to build, probably fairly affordable, fairly cheap, and this is something that the Ukrainians are looking for, and it also provides that additional armored protection that the armed forces are looking for. So it's meeting all the criteria for a good armored vehicle for the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, let me show y'all them firing a 50 cal off the top of this thing. And also, it's not a 50 cal, it's actually a Dishka. But here's the clip. When you see them firing it. And we see them continue to fire down the range. And that's the end of the clip. But really cool to see these little armored vehicles in action because they're doing a great job. And I love to see them doing their thing, you know what I mean? And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to our next clip where we got to see the GUR at work with their drones. Check it out. Pretty cool entrance. Fireboys. Man, you know, there's a restaurant here in America called Fireboys, and the Russians about to be eaten. All right, we're going to be muting that by D.
Taxi.
We see the drones flying around, doing their thing. See one coming down on a roof? We can see one going into a house. And it's almost like people living in the world. It's going into a building. It's going into a house. It's going into a flat. JSM said, ultra quiet. Yeah. It's ultra quiet. Oh, and we got a drone coming down into a car. Poof! Got it. And we got another one. And another one. And even another one.
Another one.
Another one. Another one. Oh, get him. And I saw someone say something that was very true in the live chat. The B93 said so much static. I know, I'm sorry. Sadly, we don't get to control the video quality. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, you don't even have to explain that. But I feel like we do because, you know, we try and get the best footage we can from the drones, but sometimes the drone quality is just terrible. But we still want to show it to y'all because it is showing what they're able to do. But with that, that's the end of the little clip right there. And we're going to be moving on from that clip and on into our next one, where we got to see a Ukrainian soldier trying to get one. A constant struggle in the winter months. But you can see that he set up a stove right here. He's put his feet on it, and he's trying to toast them or cook them. One or the other, whatever suits you best. Look at him. He's enjoying it.
So lovely. Warm of the feet. Look at him. He's so happy.
Man, he's just prancing his little feet around. Look at him. Aw. Moving on from that. And on into our next clip. We also got to see some tankers on Christmas. Happy holidays, please.
He's looking kind of fishy in there. He said, what you want?
Man, that's the kind of Santa you get at the mall. What you want? It's like, man, nothing. I don't want nothing. And also, in this next little picture, we got to see what appears to be an Su-25 flying over the lands of Ukraine. And is that Santa Claus? He's a damn Russian spy! But anyways, moving on from that, very nice to see that they were able to, have a little bit of fun out there on the holidays. We always love to see the Ukrainians having a bit of fun. And we're now going to be moving on into our next little bit of news where we got to see the Russian casualty report. Ooh!
Oh, 5 Bobcats in a day. Let's go. I love to see it. I love to see it.
Someone call up the fire brigade because there's graphite on the ground. They nuked 5 Bobcats. What do you know? Love to see it. And I got to tell y'all this. 5 Bobcats in a single day is something you got to cherish. It's something big. I got to tell y'all. 5 Bobcats. Can y'all imagine that? That's an entire construction crew knocked out in a single day. Very nice to see. Not only that, 1,010 Russian soldiers were knocked out.
Lovely.
What, very, very lovely?
Yes, it was actually lag there for a second. I thought you went silent, but it was just lag.
Oh my goodness. I'm so scared. I'm so terrified, and I'm stressed through the roof, as usual. But, on the other note, 1,010 Russian soldiers have been knocked out over the past 24 hours. What do you know? I gotta say, really impressive figures. Love to see them. And y'all know something that's really good about those numbers? That means that the Russians will probably be second-guessing this war a little bit more, thanks to those 1,010 guys. That is certainly not 5 guys, burgers, and fries. Oh, no. If we were able to divide these by 5, why, that would be, hell, like 200 and something. I mean, it would be a lot. It would be a lot of 5 guys, burgers, and fries. But, moving on to the other loss categories, we got to see that 37 armored personnel carriers were destroyed over 24 hours. 34 supply trucks, 22 tanks, 19 artillery pieces, 22 drones, a cruise missile, and an anti-aircraft warfare system, and the one ship. That Rapucha class ship that be no longer Rapuchin, it be crying and whining and dying. But beyond that, pretty good loss report for the 26th of December. Love to see it, and we're always happy to see this kind of stuff. But moving on from that, we have to get out of the location unknowns and on towards the frontline news in the Northeast. But before we even get on there, some of y'all have been talking about that Rapucha-class landing ship, to circle back to something that did add into that loss report, and it's a massive loss. Seeing a ship put down in the casualty report is very rare. It's incredibly rare, actually, throughout the course of the war, but this ship is one of the more important ones that has been destroyed. And a lot of y'all have been talking about the tremors that will be going through the Russian government because of such a serious loss of one ship. I see some people saying that it was 2 ships. Sadly, we have not been able to confirm that here on the channel, but if y'all have any proof, send it to us over Twitter, picture or video evidence, and we will make sure to consider it. But so many of y'all have been talking about what this loss means and what will be happening as a result. Some people are even talking about there may be the possibility of purges inside the Russian government. And Matthew, I think a lot of people have had some input on whether they think a purge would happen because of this or not.
All right, so starting off with our first poll and question segment, we have our first poll to address, and the question is, do you think Putin will purge members of the Russian military for the landing ship that was destroyed? 50% said yes, Putin will purge some people. 24% said, possibly, but we'll see. 19% said no, Putin will overlook it. And 7% said unsure. And on this one, I have a feeling that Putin is going to be very, very upset with the military leadership that a ship was able to be destroyed by Ukraine. And I already saw some talk about Shoigu having to report personally to Putin about the actual destruction of the vessel. So I would not be shocked if you see Shoigu put some people on the chopping block to take the blame for himself. I'm not sure if Putin would go as far as to actually take it out on Shoigu, because I think he needs him at this point to be able to keep going in Ukraine, because he has no one else to turn to. But I think somebody will take the fall for it, ultimately. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say someone is going to have to take the fall for such a serious loss, or no one is. It's one or the other. And honestly, the precedent is that nobody takes the fall, because the Russians just deny that this kind of stuff ever really happened, and then slowly come out and tell the truth, like they did with the Moskva. I don't think anyone was actually held accountable for the loss of the Moskva. It's just that, everyone who died. They denied they died for a while, and then they slowly admitted that the crew was killed, but it was very slow, and nobody was held accountable. So if they go off of the Moskva precedent, or really the precedent with any other destroyed Russian ship, they'll probably just deny the fact it's been destroyed until maybe a few weeks have passed, and then say it's been knocked out of action. Not completely destroyed, just knocked out of action, and some of the crew members have gone missing, maybe even AWOL on the coast. So going off of that, honestly, I would have to go with a small percentage that say you'll overlook it, because it seems as though that is the Russian precedent with every single naval disaster ever, is to overlook it. And we have really good proof of that, because a lot of y'all were alive when the Kursk disaster happened with the nuclear submarine Kursk. That submarine had a critical failure of I believe it was a primer that had been corroded inside of a torpedo. They loaded the torpedo into its tube. It then exploded, taking out the entire front of the submarine in front of the conning tower, and it then rapidly descended to the very bottom of the seabed, killing almost the entire crew except for those that were in the very rear of the submarine. They closed the watertight doors. The Russians denied that anything happened, even letting the remainder of the sailors that were alive in that submarine die as a result of their lie. And then they slowly came out and admitted, yeah, actually there was a disaster and everyone on board was killed. Going off of that kind of a precedent, which happened even before the war in Ukraine was a thing, I think they will overlook it. I'm going to have to actually go with the minority there of the 19% that voted for that, because I think that's going to be the case. But if y'all disagree, feel free to say that in the live chat. Just make sure it's very civil with each other and have a discussion about it, because what will they do? It may start to change, because these kinds of losses for the Russian Navy to continue to take is incredibly high, and we don't have a precedent for how the Russians will react to high naval losses over a 2-year period of time at any point in history, rather than World War II, which is a completely different instance under a completely different leader. So, what do y'all think? Tell us in the live chat, because I'd be very interested to know. But a lot of people have been talking about other things as well, Matthew, and what's one of the biggest topics of the night that they've been speaking about?
So we're now moving on to our super chat questions, because that was our only poll question to address at the moment. So moving into our super chat segment, our first one is going to go to a channel legend, Duncan VR, who throws in a $28 donation. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that support. And also, welcome back to the super chats.
Welcome back.
And Duncan says, Bamuba, meow, quack, guzalik valakin, says Kermit. No respect. Baba. Happy holidays. Rough for the Nitric Acid Coke Fund. And one ship sunk means get a pizza, bro. Ba woof. Oh my. Baba. Ant noise. I don't know what the ant noise is. I still don't know. He says beep beep baba moo moo. Oh man, I'm telling you, baba woof. Ah.
And I thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR, and helping this channel to keep on running. It's our boy Duncan, he's back! And also, Geschlick, Verleikman, and in Deutschen, Vulcan. Thank you so much once again for support. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, it's real, it's real. Oh, but nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for wishing us a happy holidays. I'm so glad that a lot of y'all were here last night for the Christmas address, and thank you for adding to the Nitric Coke Fund. And also, one ship sunk does mean we get a pizza. Yay! I love pizza, and thank you so much once again for making this channel making this channel possible and helping us keep this thing running. And thank you so much once again for the support. I also have to say really quickly, I thank all of y'all so much for the outpouring of kind words that y'all been throwing into the live chat tonight about the Christmas address, and all of y'all who were there also during the Christmas address. That was so nice of y'all to all be there at that moment. It means a lot to me, and I hope I was able to really tell y'all in that video how much the Elite Spring Army and the channel means to me, and how much each and every one of y'all have made a massive impact on both Enforcer Matt and my life, and not only that, have really given us a purpose to do things for. And I got to thank y'all all so much once again for being here with us all the time, and I also have to thank every single one of y'all, like Duncan VR, for helping to support this channel and keep it running, because we always talk about the fundraisers and how far they were able to make, and crazily enough, the Sunday night fundraiser made it to 13.3 thousand last time I checked. It is a record over the past few months. No fundraiser even got that high. Incredible. And one thing that we really don't talk about much is how y'all support has made this channel possible, because we don't run ads and we don't have sponsors. So y'all make this thing possible every single day. And I got to thank all of y'all who support, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't even be able to be on air to run Sunday fundraisers or have Christmas addresses. And so thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Ari Soini, who puts in a $20 donation, and Ari did not leave a comment. But as always, Ari, thank you very much for that support and helping to keep us running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much, Ari Soini, for helping this channel to keep running and making it possible. It means a lot to us. It really does. And I gotta thank you both, Kiwi Wife and Finn, for being here tonight and once again making this channel possible. And so with that, Thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving back into the Ukraine war frontline news.
And this one goes to Walter A. Lakota Jr., yet another channel legend. And he throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Walter, for that support as well. He says, Aloha, the Enforcer Matt in LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. And in Feodosia, the landing ship that exploded with a radius of around 1 to 2 kilometers. A second ship nearest it was a naval training ship, which was also sunk at its moorings.
Thank you, Walter, for the support and sharing that. Several people have said tonight that there were 2 ships destroyed. I haven't been able to find picture or video evidence of the second training ship being sunk at its moorings, but considering that so many people are saying it, I think we may be missing something out there, picture or video evidence-wise, that we weren't able to get before the show, because I was looking around and combing heavily over that story and what happened at that harbor, but I never saw any video or picture evidence of the second ship sunk at its moorings. If one of y'all can get that...
I got something here real quick on the Twitter that was sent in from Joe Taylor, and I've retweeted it to our main page. It's from Anton Yoroshenko, so you can take a look at the source and see what you think about it and see if it shows that second ship that the guy alleges in the post.
Let's see here. Oh, yeah, actually it was. Okay, hang on. We actually showed that on stream. This was the exact one we showed as well. So, really quickly to show you all this, so that way we can make sure to verify this, you can see that this ship here, which is a small training ship, is now below the waterline with a small amount of the superstructure poking out of the top of the waterline. So, it does confirm that 2 ships were sunk. This one may be salvageable, though, because whatever happened to it, they're probably going to refloat it, probably drain it, everything involved, and then probably get it back out there as a training ship. Because the amount of damage caused to this one was probably moderate, not severe. This one will never be recovered because it's literally just scraps of metal now. But this one may actually have the chance of being reused. But technically it has been sunk, but it may be refloated. Some people are probably like, what? You can refloat a ship after it sinks? Yes, you can. Actually, a lot of navies have done that in the past. There was a very notable instance with a British submarine that had a critical failure before World War II in about the early part of 1939, where it had some kind of a failure where the submarine flooded, the entire crew died, and technically the submarine sank. But the British recovered it, drained it, had it refloated, and put right back into service, and it ended up operating in World War II. So there is a precedent for that kind of a thing to happen. But hey, a brand new submarine! Let's get it, baby! But nevertheless, thank you so much, Walter A. Lakota, for sharing that with us, because I did not even catch that or notice that. But thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And not only that, making sure to make our news just that little bit more accurate, where we're getting the entire story. Because it wasn't just 1 ship destroyed, it was 2. Instead of uno, it was dos. And you know what we're about to do? We're about to get on to trace. But moving on from that, we have to trace what's been going on over the front lines today. So we're going to be moving on from the question segment, but thank you everyone once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we're now going to be moving on into the northeast area near Theodosia, where we got to see a Ukrainian D-30 firing. We see him getting ready to fire it. We can see him putting on his headset. And we see them firing the gun. And I love to see it. Happy to know that they're still using some of their older Soviet equipment, and hopefully it's as effective, as effective as it can be. It will never be as effective as Western equipment, but it still can be effective. Moving on from that and into the area near Kupiansk, we got to see a day near Kupiansk. Check it out.
Побачили косуль на полі. Ну, если
see him looking out to the distance. And look at that. It's wild horses.
Подсолнухи їли.
Man, isn't that cool? It's wild horses.
Totally wild.
А все бачите, чорненькі чаточки, це вчорашні.
Dude, when I walked up to one of these horses, I said, "Are you wild?" And it said, "Dude, I snort crack." And I said, "Wow, that's wild." But nevertheless, great to see them roaming through their fields of crack. We know people who love crack. Aw, man. But nevertheless, love to see it, and it's good to know that they're just observing nature out there. While the wars are going on, nature always returns. Moving on from that into our next little bit of news in the Northeastern front, we also got to see a Danish SPG in operation near Yehidne. This is a Danish version of the Caesar SPG from France. Check it out. We can see it closing the breach, getting ready to fire. Firing. Beep. And there it goes. And, ooh, love to see it. Aren't we always happy to see these little SPGs in operation? I love the wheeled SPGs like this because they're so good at the shoot and scoot. They set up very quickly, they pack up very easily, and they're on the move again very quickly. Very cool stuff. And it's great to know that they always have these in operation somewhere out there on the front lines. Moving on from that and into the area of Kuzmivka, we also got to see a Leopard 2 A6 near the front lines as well. This was something a little odd because we rarely ever see Leopard 2 A6s in operation in this area of the front lines. Usually it's STRV 122s, which are a license-built variant of the Leopard 2 from Sweden, but these are usually seen much farther south. The farthest north that we've ever seen them was in the area around Bachmut, but even then that was quite rare. Usually they're in the area of Avdiivka, Marinka, or even further south near Zaporizhia. So this was a very rare sight here, and this may be showing that one of those brigades has now been shifted from Zaporizhia farther north and into the area around Kupiansk. But we don't know that for certain yet, we're just noticing that this Leopard 2 is incredibly far north. Moving on from that little bit of news, which is always good to see, really quickly I have to show you that over the past 24 hours, not much has changed. Not much has changed. The front lines are largely staying the same. But moving on out of the area, we didn't get any video or picture evidence out of the Kremenna Forest. We do know the Russians are still conducting a counterattack out of that area to try and get back towards Torske and Liman, but they are not making any progress at all, and they are probably going to be having to cope, seethe, and cry their entire way through it, and even then, they're probably not going to make a lot of progress, in my honest opinion. We're about to be moving on down into the area of Bachmut now, and we've got to see that over the past 48 hours in Bachmut, the Russians have made small advances. One out of Bachmut, it does appear that they finally moved about, let's see here, let's pull out the measuring tape and measure. At the most, about 1 kilometer forward over about the past week and a half in that area, and about a half kilometer here and there. It is showing that the Russians are possibly starting to make advances again. We haven't really been hearing a lot about this from the Ukrainians either, so I'm not really sure if they're considering this to be a strategic a serious strategic implication or an event, but nevertheless, it does appear that the Russians are making smaller advances in this area, and the Ukrainian defenders are having to fall back either due to withering firepower or to try and make it to more defensible areas. However, in our first clip, we did get to see the condition of frontline trenches in Bachmut. But anyways, we could see the trench works being covered in what appears to be almost like hail-like snow. It's not even like snowflakes, it's like snowballs. Man. They're getting showered.
It was like hail.
They're getting showered with balls. Oh, I know some folks at college. But anyways, moving on from that, looks like a interesting time on the front lines. When that stuff melts, it's going to create terrible sludge, but still, odd snow, and also showing off the trench conditions in that area. Moving on from that and down into the area of Avdiivka, we also got to see the 93rd Brigade on Christmas Day. It's the famous Fighting 93rd, and what was so interesting about this picture is that they're not using AK-74s. All of these guys are using AKMs or AK-47s, which use the older 7.62x39 cartridge, which was a little bit larger and ballistically more stable, although its performance drops off at range. Beyond that, however, very interesting to see. And they also have a very cool camo on. We see this guy here with his modernized AKM or AK-47. We can also see this guy back here with his. And we just see them kind of wandering around, getting some pictures. That stock has been through better days. But we can also see them here just chilling in their little camo patterns and getting some snow off of their camo nets near the area. Pretty cool to see overall. And gotta say, pretty neat. Pretty neat. And hopefully the 93rd is having a good time out there. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news, a little bit further down the lines, We also got to see that near Avdiivka over the past 24 hours, the Russians have continued their offensives in the area, but have made absolutely no ground at all. In fact, the front lines are remaining the exact same as they were 48 hours ago. We are seeing, however, that the Russians are still attempting advances in the direction of Stepove, and they are still failing time and time again. The entire Avdiivka front line is largely fallen silent as far as video or picture evidence goes, except for the area around Krasnoyarivka and Stepove. Russian brigades continue to advance across the railroad berm towards Stepove to try and break the Ukrainian lines there. The 47th Brigade, who has been charged with the defense of Stepove, continues to defend it with some pretty heavy determination, making sure the Russian forces are not able to make it that far or that deep into the city. Moving on into our first clip, we got to see that a T-90M was actually destroyed near Stepove just 20 hours ago. We can see the T-90M advancing right here. And I've got to say, y'all, I'm terribly sorry that I'm not, like, as excitable or throwing out all the wild jokes as usual tonight. I hate to say it, but I'm incredibly stressed out tonight. I know that sounds like a reoccurring theme these days, but incredibly stressed out, but I'm trying to make sure that our news coverage is still as good as it can be. We can see the FPV drone actually hit somewhere right over the driver's hatch. We can now see the driver has gone insane and drove right through the forest. And we now see this T-90 trying to make a U-turn and get out of there. The drone hitting it has spooked them. And it's done more than spook them. They're now bailing out of the tank. It appears that a fire has even started inside of the crew compartment. And also, what happened to the driver out there? Hang on. It looks like the driver got down because he's expecting another drone to come in. And we now see the driver and the commander running off, or the gunner and the commander. We couldn't really even tell. And now we see all three crew members abandoning the T-90M in the middle of the field. And from what we can tell, that T-90M is still in operational condition. So it's a running T-90. So they can just go out there and grab it and reuse it again. Or the Ukrainians might grab it and use it. And hopefully they'll be the ones to do that. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also get to see that another Russian advance was completely destroyed heading towards Stepove. Apparently the 47th Brigade was the one to knock it out. And I gotta say, pretty nice overall to see. Good to know they were able to destroy several BMPs and make sure that another Russian advance was completely unsuccessful. Moving on from that little bit of news and on into even our next one, we also got to see that the T-80BV was destroyed near the area of Stepove from Ukrainian fire. We're assuming that it was a Ukrainian ATGM that hit the vehicle and ended up causing a critical detonation of the ammunition storage, maybe taking the crew with it. Moving on from that and into our last clip, we also got to see another Bradley firing onto the area of Stepove in the Avdiivka direction. This is on the very northern end of the Avdiivka coke plant. They're continuing to fire across and towards the railroad berm. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Very nice to see and good to know that the Ukrainians are still doing what they do. Moving on from that, now the area of Avdiivka and a little bit further south towards the direction of Marinka, we also got to see that down in this area, the Russians have continued to push forward. But sadly, I am going to have to make one adjustment to the map. The Russians did officially take the entirety of Marinka today, and we were able to confirm that. That is somewhat unfortunate news, but at the same time, it has taken the Russians an entire 2 years to finally take the entirety of Marinka. The Battle of Marinka started on the 24th of February 2022, and was finally won by the Russians 2 years later after a continuous battle in the area here on the 26th of December of 2023. The Ukrainian defenders at Marinka held out for literally nearly 2 years against a Russian attack, but sadly the town was lost today. And when it was lost, we actually got a drone view of Marinka today showing what the battlefield looked like. Well, of course, the Russians ended up taking over nothing more than stones and rubble. The entire city had been destroyed over the nearly hell, I'm trying to think here. Nearly 9 to 10 years of continuous fighting that had been going on over this town. Marinka was on the front lines since 2015. And up until the invasion of 2022, it was an active battlefield in between the Donetsk People's Republic and the Ukrainian Armed Forces. After that, at the beginning of the Russian invasion of February of 2022, the Russians then took over the battle, and we can see that nearly 2 years later, they finally ended up taking the town. But there's literally nothing left 9 years after the battle began. That's the end of the clip, but moving on from that, we did get an additional clip showing that the Ukrainians were hauling more ammunition to the front lines and continuing with their dogged defense of the area. We see them using a dolly to bring the ammunition up, and what kind of ammunition does this guy have? Oh, he's got that nice Western stuff, and the Western ammo boxes. Very nice. Very nice to see. It's primo quality stuff. Some may even say that that's Lake City ammunition, and if it is, oh by golly, I wish I could get my hands on that. Some of y'all may not know this. This is a fun fact about U.S. weapons, well, U.S. munitions production. Lake City Army ammunition plant. Now let me go to Lake City ammunition, or ammo plant. This factory right here produces, I believe it's like 25% or 30% of all of the 5.56 ammo inside of the United States. And I believe that for Army contracts, it ends up providing something like 40% of all of the Army's ammunition contracts. Lake City ammunition plant ammunition is, in my opinion, some of the best I've ever shot. And it's actually a little bit tough to get that out there on the civilian market because Lake City prioritizes military contracts over civilian contracts. It's only when it doesn't have enough military contracts to sell all of its ammunition to the armed forces that they end up releasing a lot of it onto the civilian market. And that's, funnily enough, where a lot of your brand name ammunition comes from. You know, like a company like Winchester may say that this is Winchester ammo or it's PMC ammo. Usually, most of the time, that is just repackaged ammunition from Lake City. And I believe I may be getting that wrong in those ammo companies. So if you know a little bit better, let me know. But a lot of the ammunition you get out there that's 5.56 by 45 is actually just rebranded Lake City stuff. And usually it's rejects as well. So if you ever get that kind of stuff, you're like, man, it's having failures. The Army is not getting those. Those are the ones that failed the quality control because they're still selling their top-end premium stuff to the military, because if the ammunition is tested by the military and it ends up failing the tests, then the Lake City plant may have to take that entire order back and then get them a new one. So they're always going to send the highest quality stuff to the military, but then send the rest of it, to some of the stuff that failed, to the civilian market. It's still high-end quality, though, and usually higher-end quality than even the stuff you're going to find that is, you know, just made by, for example, the Winchester ammunition plant or other ammo plants around the nation. And also, correction, Aldo, you are correct. PMC is from Korea, because I remember that I got one of their little hermetically sealed ammunition packs, which I'm going to admit is kind of a waste because, like, you know, it's target ammo, so why in the world does it need to be hermetically sealed? But beyond that, it does say Republic of Korea on the side of it. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, because that's an interesting fact about the ammunition world. And also, once you get into shooting, you find, like you know, target shooting specifically, you find out that certain kinds of ammunition are like fine wines. Like, there's your cheap, like, store shelf wines, and then there's your fine wines that, you know, you end up shooting, because it's not wine, it's ammo. And I would say that Lake City is on up there in the quality world. It's getting towards the very fine wines of ammunition if you're able to get real Lake City stuff. And funnily enough, I'll tell you all this as well, I have been able to track down, somehow, some way, real Lake City ammunition plant 30-06 ammo that was produced in the late 50s in cardboard boxes, which usually means that the ammunition isn't going to be that great, because made in the 50s, being in a cardboard box, has probably been subjected to a decent amount of humidity changes and all kinds of stuff that may have ruined the powder charges. But I have ended up shooting a good amount of that ammo, and it's actually still pretty high quality and works quite well. I was very shocked by that. So Lake City ammunition is stuff to swear by, and if the Ukrainians are getting their hands on that, their M4s, M16s, or ARs are probably doing pretty damn well. But moving on from that and into our next little bit of news, we also got to see the Ukrainians dropping a 25mm Bushmaster shell as a drone bomblet. This is the first time we've ever seen this on film. And it's one of the high explosive shells, hence the fancy paint job. Paul Campbell said, is that the Enforcer's car parked in front of the ammo gift shop? Oh, man. If I hear that there's like a deal on ammo, you bet. You bet. But we can see the drone explosion right there. And I gotta say, those 25mm Bushmasters really do have a lot of punch and power behind them. Really powerful stuff, I gotta admit. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Very nice to see. And moving on from that and further down the line, we also got to see what the Russian forces in the area are looking like near Novomikhailivka. Although we love that music. Oh!
Man, it's
What
almost
the-
as good as Benny Hill.
What the hell was that? Look. Yep. And then it does nothing. See them rolling on along, and looks like a couple of guys are sleeping on top. Looks like these guys are trying to get a ride as well. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. He's being left behind. They decided they can't stop. But that's not stopping him either. He's just going to run behind it. He's like, wait, I want to be a target too, bled. And they're like, no, no more room for targets. We have enough targets. He's like, wait, bled. He's grabbed onto the door. Oh, and he fell, but oh, he got dragged along, and now he's been dropped behind, and they're abandoning him. And it looks like he just can't handle it anymore. He's just given up. And there goes the MTLB. A little bit further on down the road. And it's kind of crawling now. Yeah, but the Novomikhailivka front isn't exactly the best front to be a Russian soldier on at this point. It looks like they're doing pretty poorly. But moving on from that, we also got to see a 2S1 Avdiivka trying to tow an M777 artillery piece through the mud. Now, this is a sight, because it really puts into perspective the difference in between I believe it's a 125mm main gun in the Avdiivka versus a 155mm gun from the west. Just look at the scale of the guns. I mean, the M777 is a massive behemoth of an artillery piece. Because that's what you'll usually find as the standard SPG across all Russian and Ukrainian forces. And that's the end of the clip right there. Of course, pretty interesting to note. And we're now going to be moving on a little bit further down the lines and into the area of Kherson. Because down in the Kherson area, we saw that the Russians have continued to try and shell the city of Kherson and have ended up causing a decent amount of damage. And we got to see the aftermath of that in a stairway where people were trying to take shelter. And also see the damage caused to the buildings as well. We hear explosions still ongoing in the distance from Russian shelling. And that's the end of the clip. But pretty interesting to see the damage that was caused, and of course, hopefully the Ukrainians will be able to make the Russians pay tenfold for all of the casualties that they may have caused, wounded, and killed. Oddly enough, we've been able to get through the news very quickly tonight, so I'm going to be handing y'all over to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 671 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech! And let me make sure we got the subtitles, and here we go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Складний день. Щойно була доповідь щодо обстрілу Херсону. Російський удар по залізничному вокзалу. Евакуаційний поїзд. Всі служби зараз на місці. Кількість убитих і постраждалих наразі встановлюється. На місці було багато цивільних. Усі оновлення, інформації будуть представлені відповідними службами. Провів сьогодні ставку. Кілька годин і майже вся була присвячена виробництву нашої зброї в наступному році. По всім елементам від артилерії до дронів і ракет. По кожному пункту. Детальна розмова, детальне з'ясування щодо підприємств, контрактів, державних інвестицій у виробництво. За участю усіх, хто відповідає за результат для держави. Мінстратегпром, Міноборони, Генштаб, Главком та інші. Намітили з прем'єр-міністром, який обсяг коштів треба направити в оборонку прискорено. Також урядовці мають визначитись з усіма завданнями для нашої дипломатичної роботи наступного року. Саме щодо домовленостей з партнерами по виробництву зброї, по постачанню компонентів та обладнання. Абсолютно всі плани, чіткий алгоритм дій, все основне має бути визначено для нашого оборонного комплексу, щоб наступний рік був максимально продуктивним. Україна мусить виробляти самостійно або спільно з партнерами все. Все, що необхідно для захисту від будь-яких форм російської агресії. Можемо це забезпечити. Звичайно, докладно обговорили на ставці і ситуацію на фронті. Всі напрямки. Доповіді командувачів. Окрема вдячність нашим повітряним силам, хороша робота по окупантам в Криму. Провів сьогодні нараду щодо нашої роботи з НАТО. В наступному році голова Верховної Ради України, прем'єр-міністр, профільний віце-прем'єр-міністр, міністр закордонних справ, міжнародники Офісу президента. Стратегія України у відносинах з Альянсом абсолютно зрозуміла. Це фундамент безпеки і для України, і для всієї Європи разом з Україною. Під таку стратегію формуємо і відповідну тактику дій. Зовнішня політика, комунікації, інституційні кроки в нашій державі. Все має бути максимально змістовним. Ввечері говорив із Вселенським патріархом Варфоломієм, подякував йому за привітання українців та всієї України з Різдвом Христовим та за незмінну підтримку нашого народу, нашої держави. Фанар бере участь в роботі щодо формули миру. І це важливо, що й духовні лідери світу залучені до цієї спільної роботи світової більшості. Ми маємо разом усі в світі продовжувати наш тиск на російську державу. Це справедливо. Ще кілька речей. Сьогодні почалась дискусія щодо нових правил мобілізації. Є законодавча пропозиція. Військове командування, Міністерство оборони і інші залучені органи представили її у Верховну Раду України. Буде правильним, щоб такі норми обговорювалися та приймалися не кулуарно, а так, щоб люди розуміли, яке бачення у військового командування, які мотиви у тих чи інших правил та умов, що пропонують депутати та як вирішують це питання, які вже є у наших воїнів в силах оборони. Закон – це те, що стосується усіх, кожного в державі. Буде правильним, щоб на базі Комітету Верховної Ради України військові разом з депутатами визначились із тим, як саме на законодавчому рівні має бути забезпечений наступний рік для наших сил оборони. Чекаємо на остаточний текст закону. І, звичайно, вдячність нашим воїнам. Сьогодні є за що особливо відзначити воїнів ГУР, а саме спецпризначенців з підрозділу Тимура та воїнів нашої 24-ї окремої механізованої бригади. Молодці хлопці. Я дякую усім, хто дбає про Україну. Я дякую усім, хто пам'ятає, що результат для України потрібен кожного дня – максимальний результат. Слава Україні!
And Herom Slava.
And Ram Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and we're now about to be moving on into the second part of this stream. But before we do, I just want to take a moment to say a couple of things. I want to say really quickly that a lot of y'all have been here tonight and were here last night during the Christmas address, and I didn't really get to touch this a lot earlier, but it meant a lot to us to see all the positive words and kindness that y'all left in response to our Christmas address. It was very touching and very nice of y'all. And also another thing is that it actually took us pretty much all of Christmas Day to make the address, because we tried to film it on Christmas Eve, and that ended up going terribly, and we didn't get a good take. And so then we ended up taking it on Christmas Day, and that ended up taking a good amount of the day. And even then, somehow the audio ended up coming out deep fried. And some of y'all may have noticed that. We tried to fix that as much as we could. We made, like, I think 6 more takes after that. None of those takes ended up well either, because the audio quality, like, we just couldn't figure it out. We couldn't figure out what happened to the audio quality. But we finally got one out. And moving on into today, it's been great seeing everyone saying great things, not just about the Christmas address, but also about the gun review video as well. A lot of y'all really enjoyed that. But nevertheless, even with all the positive things going on, stress will catch up to you. And I gotta say that while I'm a little stressed out right now, if y'all ever feel stressed out, you always make sure to take a break, sit back. If it means not watching a stream, make sure to do that, because stress is incredibly tough to deal with. Honestly, at this point, for almost months on end now, every single time I get on stream, I'm stressed out over something. Usually it's not even stream related, but it's something going on in the background. But I always want to make sure y'all take care of y'all's stress as best as y'all can, because if y'all are going through any stressful situations, I can tell y'all that I know exactly what it means and exactly what it feels like because I'm probably in the same boat with you. But I hope that y'all are all good out there. And if y'all aren't, make sure to take care of yourselves first. But with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so moving into our final segment of polls and also questions once again. We have one poll here that says Ukrainian General Zelensky denies asking Zelensky to mobilize 500,000 civilians for the military. And what are your thoughts? 49% said sounds like a misunderstanding. 30% said unsure. 12% said Zelensky never sought advice, ? And 10% said maybe Zelensky is trying to deceive, ? And on this one, I really honestly can't tell you what is really going on, because at first it sounds like a misunderstanding, but that would be such a big misunderstanding. That's almost hard to believe. So I'm going to be in the unsure and undecided category. It sounds like there might be some internal fighting going on behind the scenes that maybe they're trying to keep a little bit hush-hush, because that is definitely a very large misunderstanding if it is one. But unfortunately, what say you?
I've had to be honest. This sounds a lot like political infighting in the Ukrainian government. Zelensky has already voiced some displeasures he's had with Zelensky. He then made a statement, and now Zelensky is coming out and saying that no such request had been made by the armed forces of Ukraine, which may be showing that there is a decent amount of a rivalry going on in between Zelensky and Zelensky. That's not really the best thing. That's certainly not the best thing to have in the middle of a war. So we may see that there are some changes of command in who's the chief of the armed forces of Ukraine here in the near future. Don't really know why that's happening, because, Zelensky in the past blamed Zelensky for the failure of the southern offensive. And I know some people are going to say, well, it was a success in a way. They did end up pushing further south, but it didn't really achieve any of its objectives. And for a decent amount of the Ukrainian government, they have viewed it as a failure. But I can't really blame Zelensky for that, because he was working with what they knew at the time. And it's not really anything of his fault. I mean, yes, he ended up making an error, I will admit. But I don't feel like he should be, just the one to take the fall for it. Zelensky has ended up being a great chief of the armed forces for nearly 2 years at this point, and everyone is going to have a failure. Ulysses S. Grant did have his failures during the Civil War and was not a perfect general. Neither was the pretty much premier general of the Confederate States, Robert E. Lee. Of course, everyone knows his blunder at Gettysburg, where the Confederate Army was completely defeated. But beyond that, every single general, no matter whose side they were on, where, they've always made mistakes. And let's just name off a couple of them. Hell, Patton made a mistake, especially when invading Sicily. There was a stint of time in Sicily where they didn't really know where the British were and continued to advance and ended up overrunning British objectives, which ended up throwing everything off and allowed the Germans and the Italians time to retreat across the strait in between Sicily and the mainland and try and set up defenses there. We've even seen that generals like, and I'm trying to think of some, generals like Rommel for the opposite side, just make sure we address both sides. Rommel, while being a great general in North Africa, still ended up losing the campaign, and that was considered a defeat by the Germans and truly was a defeat. They ended up losing North Africa along with the Italians. Overall, regardless whether a general be on the good side of history or the bad side of history, we can all generally say that these generals, at least in the role of their martial aspect, were fairly decent in their overall careers. But at the same time, they have had their failings. There's always been a time where they failed, and everyone has failures. Winston Churchill was the guy who was the grand architect of the Gallipoli campaign, which was by far the worst failure of World War I, really on either side. In World War II, there were plenty of failures to be had as well, but I don't think that one failure ought to damn a man, or anyone for that matter, into being removed from their position and blamed for the failures of the world. Zelensky has really only made that one thing as a failure that I can tell, and beyond that, I think that Zelensky is a pretty decent commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine. Whatever's going on behind the scenes, however, that's not good, I will say. I don't know what's going on back there, but it seems like the armed forces and the president are now on almost two completely different pages, and they need to try and come to terms. Zelensky is a irreplaceable part of the armed forces of Ukraine, in my opinion, at this moment. He's certainly shown that he has a very good track record, and Zelensky also has a fairly good track record as well with trying to get support for Ukraine over 2 years, although he's also made some mistakes, in my opinion, as well in that regard. But They need to come to terms with each other and get right back on the same page instead of having these major communication issues that we're seeing right now. So with that, I hope that does address what's going on the best that I can, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving into our super chat questions. Up first, we have one from Praise Adonai, who y'all all know is a longtime channel legend who throws in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Adonai, for that support. It said, Enforcer and Matt, yeehaw to you both. And I pray for victory for the Ukraine and all supporters. And the question is, what will be the strategy for using the F-16s in the near future? And will it be used sparingly or all out? And may God bless us all this next year.
And thank you for the massive amount of support. Praise Adonai. And to ya, praise Adonai. And I thank you. And also, I do pray for victory for Ukraine and all the supporters as well. And I know that a lot of the supporters are here with us right now as we're covering the news. The F-16s will probably be used primarily in seed operations. In my honest opinion, I think that will be the priority of the Ukrainian Air Force once they receive the F-16s for probably the next 3 months. Every other thing will be put on hold. You will not see a lot of air-to-ground operations, or any of those operations, air-to-air operations even for that matter, over the next 3 months. Almost every single thing that the F-16 will be doing will be revolving around seed operations, which means that they will be destroying active radar sites of surface-to-air missile batteries and other kinds of air defense systems. Doing that gives the Ukrainians the ability, after those 3 months are over, to start using their air power any which way they want, and the only thing they have to be concerned about are man pads on the ground, and also enemy aircraft. But beyond that, they won't really have to worry about enemy aircraft that much because their SAM sites will still be up and operational. We'll be able to destroy the Russians at any given chance. So going off of that, I have a feeling that's probably how the F-16s are probably going to be used well into the future, at least months in advance. And let me make sure to refresh my viewer activity page so that way I can make sure to read everything else, make sure I'm putting it all in there. Let's see. Will it be used sparingly or all out? I think that they probably will be used all out, because not using them all out will be really screwing over the Ukrainian Air Force potential-wise. The F-16s have a lot more potential than any other aircraft they have in their service right now, and so I have a feeling that these aircraft will be used all out, but I hope they use them correctly. Because the U.S. Air Force, which is, of course, the primary user of F-16s around the world, has an amazing track record of using their aircraft, including the F-16, like, for example, in the Gulf War. The first targets that the U.S. Air Force went after in the Gulf War were Iraqi SAM sites. Those were the first. And then everything else came later. But you have to be able to dominate the skies, and that means you have to dominate the air defense systems on the ground and destroy them almost completely, so that way you can have unlimited air operations after that. Norman Schwarzkopf, like I said before, amazing general. He was the general of the coalition forces, the supreme commander of the coalition forces in the Gulf War. He did an amazing job, and that kind of a strategy is one I think would still work in the modern day, especially considering that destroying SAM sites is the basic foundation of beginning large air operations. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and hopefully everyone will be blessed going into this new year as well. And thank you so much once again, Praise Adonai, for being an old guard of this channel, a longtime viewer, and not only that, supporting us to help us to keep this thing rolling. It means a lot to us. Because supporters who help the channel to keep running are actually a very few and far in between compared to the fundraisers. We'll be able to raise $13.3 thousand on the fundraiser, and you never see that over the course of months. So we are always appreciative to every single donor who, well, not donor, but super chatter who supports the channel, because y'all are helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Walter A. Lakota Jr., who puts in a $50 donation, and that is the second super chat of the stream, so a huge shout out to you, Walter, for that. And he says, it's me again, and the second ship that's a naval training ship that sunk is not going to get a raise or refloated. It sunk because of the concussion wave and shrapnel from the landing ship caused damage to bulkheads, hull plates, and frames. And what say you?
I would say that you're probably right. That's because you are the OG LSM bosun. I'm not really that big of a naval guy, and I don't really know how damage can be caused to a ship like that. So I would have to take your word on that. This appears to be the vessel as well, possibly. So what say me? I would have to say you right, most likely, because I wouldn't really have a lot to disagree with you on there, and I don't really know enough knowledge in that field to be able to disagree. So I would have to say you're probably right. It probably will not be refloated. They'll probably try and scrap it instead. That's what I would think at this point, going off of that information. But with that, thank you so much once again for throwing in a very observant and very informed comment, Walter. I know that whenever you or Rob Eisman or JC Atkins throws in a comment about anything naval on this channel, we can take it and run with it, because y'all are always correct on the naval facts. And I got to thank you so much once again, Walter, for coming in with your expertise and helping us to clarify why that ship probably will not be refloated due to severe damage. But with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you, Walter, for being an old guard and also a merchant mariner. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much.
All right, and the next one's going to go to Super Action General, who puts in a $50 donation. And it's good to see you again, Super Action General. I believe it's been a minute. So thank you very much for that support. It says, howdy, Enforcer Bros. It's been a while. And I've been forward deployed in Europe for a while now, and will be for some time. And I've had to rewatch streams since y'all start, when I'm usually sleeping at this time, and wanted to say Igor and happy holidays. And also happy holidays to you, Super Action General. That was where you were, forward deployed in Europe. Very interesting. Also, it's very good to see you once again.
And I thank you so much for the support, Super Action General. Of course, it is great to know that that your division, I'm not going to say it because I remember you asked us not to say it, but your division is in Europe. If any division needs to be in Europe, it is yours, because history was made with that division. Beyond that, it's great to see that you're on tonight. We have been wondering where you were. We were like, where in the world is he? And some viewers are always away on work or something like that. But for you, it's actually being forward deployed. So that's actually a little bit more serious than work. But during the Christmas address, we saw actually that a lot of people, because it was Christmas Day, were off. And we saw so many names in that chat that we rarely get to see anymore, like Confarelli, who was there that night, amongst so many others. And I got to say that it is great to know that you and that division are out there in Europe right now, because I trust y'all completely with the defense of the Western world if need be. And on top of that, it's great to have you here tonight. I'm guessing that you're still forward deployed in Europe somewhere with your division. But beyond that, I hope you're having a great time over there. I hope you get to experience the local culture, because the culture of European countries has changed a lot over the past century, but they still keep a lot of their cultural ties and heritage the way they were. And hopefully you're getting to experience that whichever country you're in. And I hope that things are continuing to go well. And I thank you so much for rewatching the streams. Although you haven't been here with us live, it means a lot to us to know that folks are always watching, even when they can't be on air. But I'm glad you made the pilgrimage, and I'm glad that you were here live with us tonight. And so thank you so much once again, Super Action General. Happy holidays to you as well. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to BC Skyman, who throws in a $20 donation. And that is BC's first super chat of the night. I thought it was a second, but I got confused. But BC, thank you very much for that support. And he actually put in a super sticker of the YouTube pair saying thank you. But we really thank you, BC. Thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you, BC Skyman, for the support and helping the channel to keep running. And also, thank you so much for being a huge member of the Lee Spring Army. I actually gave you a special mention during the Christmas address because I think that what you did in Ukraine was absolutely amazing. And I thank you so much for being an incredible viewer of this channel, helping us to keep this thing running. And of course, not only that, being a channel legend. You've been here since practically the very first days of this channel covering the war. And it means a lot to us to know that you're still here with us today. And if anyone was to thank the other, it would be me thanking you for being here and sticking with us for this long. A lot of people have come and gone, but the old guards are always here, and it means a lot for us to see y'all all the time. And so thank you so much once again, and I thank you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Trister1, who puts in a $20 donation, and it's good to see you again, Trister, as well. We got a lot of old guards coming out tonight. And Trister said, hello, LSA, and a chat question, please.
And hello to you, Trister. And I don't know why I just like had a pause there. But nevertheless, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Thank you for supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And we will make sure to get a chat from the live chat. But still, thank you so much once again, and thank you for making this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one. I mean, we're on to the live chat. It's sorry.
And that live chat question is going to go to Bill Alexander, who says, I heard 2 more Russian jet fighters are down, and have you heard any word?
I have heard about that, but I wasn't able to confirm whether that was a duplicate of the other day, because they said they shot down an Su-34 and an Su-30, which sounded literally like the report they made a day and a half ago before that. I would have reported that tonight if it wasn't for that, but considering that the loss report was literally identical to a day and a half ago, I was thinking we ought to give that a moment and wait to see if that is true information or not, because that may just be echoes of a day and a half ago now coming out again today. But with that, I hope that does address that well. That's why we didn't cover that today. If we are able to confirm that, we will cover it tomorrow. But thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Zyper Sniper 1, another channel legend who puts in a $20 donation. And it's good to see you, Zyper, as well. He says, good evening, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, and great stream, and news as always, and love Ukraine. And I just got engaged on Christmas Day, and also congratulations, by the way. He said, so can I say I had the best Christmas I ever had?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And congratulations, Zyper Sniper. You got engaged, and you're going to be getting married. Very good job. And congratulations on both of y'all for getting that to happen. Also, Zyper Sniper is a Norwegian viewer. So I hope y'all have a really fun time up there. Norway is a beautiful place. Probably a great place to get married, I guess. However it is, if you really love who you're getting engaged with, which I'm sure you do, anywhere is a great place to get engaged, whether it be Norway, Britain, America, Germany, maybe even Russia. Well, I would say that's even pushing it, even if you really love them. But beyond that, congratulations on you. I think that is probably one of the best Christmases that you could ever have, and I got to congratulate you. Because finding someone that's right for you is really tough, actually. And I'm sure that it was like finding a needle in a haystack, and I bet you're very lucky to be engaged right now. And I wish you the best of luck, Zyper Sniper. I wish both of y'all the best of luck, and I hope it lasts forever for both of y'all. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that as well as can be. And Matthew, did he want a live chat?
And let's see, he actually did not ask for one.
What? Well, what do you know? I'm just getting all caught up on live chats and stuff, Matthew. Oh, live chats, two chairs. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Chester. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, I wonder if anybody in the live chat knows where that reference comes from. If you do, put it in the live chat, because I'm kind of curious. How many people here watch that show? But anyways, up next, we have a $15 super chat from Historic Tasmanian. And thank you very much for that support, by the way. He said, good day, and did you have a ham and pineapple pizza? And Happy New Year, and better than and my Christmas.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for wishing us a Merry Christmas. We actually had a pretty good one. I'm not gonna lie, it was actually very stressful because the Christmas address wasn't really turning out the way we were hoping it would, but the end result was good. Like, it's just that the audio quality was the one thing that did not turn out well, and that still freaked me out a little bit, but a lot of y'all loved it, and I'm happy to hear that. But beyond that, rather than having a little bit of a stressful Christmas, it didn't turn out that bad. It was a really good Christmas. We got amazing gifts. Matthew actually got me a range bag, which was really cool, and I got to thank him very much for that, because it's
no
neat.
problem, anytime, man.
It's so neat, y'all. It's got little cubby holes, and it's got a little zip open top. I mean, it's something. It really is something.
And the Enforcer got me a watch, which I'm very appreciative for as well. The only sad part was
it was too big.
The watch was a little bit too big. It wouldn't sit flat on my wrist, so it's got to go back, sadly. But it was a very kind gesture, and I do appreciate it, Enforcer, very much.
And no problem at all. No problem at all. And I actually used the range bag today when I went to the range to go shoot an M4, because I actually have an M4, you know, and a lot of people are gonna be like, it's an AR. I call it the M4. Listen, it was sold to me as an M4A1, so I'm calling it an M4. You know, like, you know, y'all get the picture. Y'all get the picture. Every single one of them's an AR, but, you know, different little things make them into different names. But beyond that, it was very nice, because he also got me these little, like, noise canceling headphone things where you can hear people talking, but it also, like, mutes the gunshots, or at least deafens them as best as possible. And that was really cool. Like, I had never worn a headset like that before, but it was sick, and I was like, wow. So, like, isn't this nice? So when we go and make our next gun reviews, we're going to be kitted up. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell y'all a little bit about the gun reviews. Some people who are helping us out with that watch the gun reviews, and they like them. They really like them. And y'all know something? They actually offer for us to shoot machine guns on the gun reviews, their machine guns, and also review them. So we are probably going to be in our next gun review after the P90, which hopefully will be coming out here soon, because we have to edit it up and everything and get it ready to go. It should not be that tough, but it should be out hopefully before the beginning of next week. But on top of that, the next gun review videos after that are actually going to be Maschinengewehr. They're going to be full-on machine guns. And also, I was able to track down a range where we are actually able to fire the guns at full speed. The range we went to has, like, you know, rules. Rules. I'm just kidding. The rules are actually good. But sadly, for videos, it isn't that interesting to watch someone fire slowly. So we have to be able to go somewhere where we can fire quickly with no accuracy, but it looks really neat, because that's what really makes people interested. So we'll be trying to make the gun reviews better as time goes on, and hopefully a lot of y'all will really enjoy them. But nevertheless, I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Bobo Uzala, who puts in a $20 donation. And
Uh-oh, lag.
this live streaming, and excuse me, what is the... Oh no!
Oh,
we got
God! Oh! Oh, no, it's flatlined. Let's see here.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
I'm
no.
telling you.
Looks like we're back.
We're back.
Oh, yay! Yay!
All right. So back to the super chat question. Bobo said, thanks to you guys for keeping this live stream streaming. And what is the Ukrainian F-16 livery going to look like?
And thank you so much, Bobo Uzala, for helping us to make this live stream possible. We would run this stream with support or without support, but y'all's support actually makes it possible for us to make sure that we're able to take care of things in the background. So I got to thank you so much for making this stream possible and helping us to keep them possible. And also, some people have been having the idea that the F-16s are going to have that Ukrainian digital camouflage, like the blue toned summer camouflage or the black and gray toned winter camo patterns. We don't really know. I have a feeling that the Ukrainians probably won't do that because repainting them takes time. They'll probably just take them as they are, probably in their gray liveries that are used by the Dutch and Polish air forces. The Dutch ones, I believe, are the ones arriving first, so I'll show y'all what a Dutch F-16 looks like. Let me go get a picture.
Peter, the picture's here.
Here we go. This is what a Dutch F-16 looks like camo-wise, and I have a feeling they're probably going to be introduced into Ukrainian service like this. Or, let me go type in Ukrainian F-16. Because I think someone... let's see here. Yeah, here we go. It's on DCS World, but some people have actually made camo patterns on DCS World for a hypothetical F-16 being introduced into Ukrainian service. And that's kind of what the Ukrainian digital camo patterns would look like on an F-16, at least in the summer pattern. And if you want to imagine what the winter patterns would look like, just imagine it on a grayscale, where the dark blue is black, the light blue is gray, and then the gray area on this plane would actually be white. But that's what it actually would look like if they had a Ukrainian camo pattern on an F-16, or at least that's the closest approximation that we are able to get here on the channel. But beyond that, I hope that does address that the best we can, Bobo, because from what I think, they're probably going to look gray, but they may actually look like this. Also, here is that winter camo pattern on an F-16.
Oh, what do you know? That looks pretty cool.
I think it actually does look cool. The summer one, though, I don't know. It looks great on an SU-27, but not so much on an F-16 to me.
I like it personally. I think it's really sick.
Oh, you think this is wacky slosh?
I guess so. If that's what the kids are saying these days, I'm telling you.
Man, kids are saying all kinds of things, man. All kinds of things. I'm telling y'all. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Bobo, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that as best as I can, and thank you so much once again, Bobo, for being a channel legend and helping this thing to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next super chat we have goes to Ari Sowini yet again.
Hey,
This time they put in an $18 super chat. And they said, thank you for your stream today. And power was out at work, so I got sent home early to watch your stream alive. I'm thinking I meant to say live, by the way. I hope you're alive. And they said, Kiwi and Finn.
Hey, Kiwi Wife and Finn, and thank you so much for being here with us today. I guess that's a little unfortunate that power went out at work and you got to send home, but fortunate on the other hand because we got to have you here tonight. And I thank you for being here tonight, Ari. And I gotta say it's great to have y'all on. Whenever we get to see y'all, we actually saw the return of a couple of people tonight we haven't seen in a while, like Super Action General, Duncan VR, Psyops. You were actually around a pretty good bit, but every once in a while we do notice that you go missing a little bit. But it's great to have you back, and I'm glad to know that you're here with us tonight. And thank you so much to both Kiwi Wife and Finn for being here and supporting this channel and helping it to be possible, and also being here with us tonight. It means a lot. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Junebug72, who puts in a $12 donation. And Junebug said, I loved your Christmas address, and thank you and cheers to you both. And heck, cheers. And guess what? Cheers to you too. And to us all. And LSA, and Slav Ukraine, and good evening.
And LSA. And thank you so much, Junebug72, for enjoying the Christmas address. The Elite Spring Army means more to me than I can put into words, and I tried to put into words what the Elite Spring Army means as best as I could, and even then I didn't really get everything out I wanted to say, but I gotta thank you all so much for being such a special and amazing community and making this channel possible, and not only making the channel possible, but making our fundraisers and our support for Ukraine possible as well. It's incredible to know that all of y'all have always been behind us and always making sure to wish us the best, help us to achieve the best, and not only that, help yourselves to achieve the best as a group. It's been incredible, and I gotta thank you so much, Junebug72, for being one of those amazing people and helping this channel to keep on running and continuing to throw kind words our way. It means more to us than y'all could ever know. And let me make sure to address everything in that super chat. So let me pull it up in the viewer activity chart. And let's see here. Let me go find it. I always get it. Let's see. And also, cheers to the Lee Spring Army as well. I got to give a huge shout out to the Lee Spring Army. A huge one. Because y'all are always here every single night. Y'all are the community of the Enforcer channel. And it's amazing to me that y'all are always huge supporters of Ukraine. It just means a great deal to me, and I got to thank every single one of y'all. And of course, Slav Ukraini, and good evening to you too, Junebug. And I hope you've been having a great evening today. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Melissa Renee Swamp Hag of the LSA. And they put in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Melissa, for that support. She said, great job, Andrew, on the AK video, and can't wait for more fun reviews, and take one from the chat in Slav Ukraine.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying that AK review. We love to put out AK reviews. Man, I love AK reviews. And I can't wait for more to come out. Our P90 video is going to be very similar to the AK video because it was filmed at the exact same time the AK video was filmed. But we're actually going to be changing them up drastically beyond that. We're going to be making it a lot more interesting, a lot more exciting, and still putting out a decent amount of information on those guns. We want to try and make the best videos possible, whether it be on the news of the war or on gun reviews. And some people are kind of misunderstanding, and I saw this in the comments section. Some people are trying to politicize our gun reviews or completely misunderstand the point of them by trying to make it a private ownership of guns issue and trying to say that we shouldn't even be allowed to own them. One, we can own them, so, you know, what the hell's the point of saying that? Two, on top of that, what we're doing, and what I've been doing, is I have been collecting near military grade weapons, or weapons that have been used by the military, solely for the purpose of trying to review them on air and talk about how armed forces use them and what kind of shooting qualities they have, and maybe even compare them against each other. I don't know why people always have to view things in a very politicized mindset, and I'm only talking about like a very small amount of people. Like 99.9% of people enjoyed it greatly, but we saw like this small group of people that just acted like it was an offense to their soul for us to make a video like that, and it's not for that reason. We completely avoid politics on this channel, and I don't really like even the mention of them around here because there's so much more to things than that, and it seems very two-dimensional and one-sided to do something like that, or even say that about the gun review. But I can't wait to show y'all all the other things that we are going to be able to get our hands on, because there's a lot. I mean, we are going to be doing the M4 A1, the Army standard M4 A1 and semi-automatic. We are also going to be doing the M16. We're also going to be doing the, well, a variant of the H&K G3, because we aren't able to find one. So it's a PTR 91, but that's a clone of the H&K G3. We're also going to be doing an FN FAL. We're going to be doing maybe an M14. Y'all may have seen one on the set in the AK video, but the thing is that one is from 1983 and it's unfired. So I'm kind of debating whether we're actually going to shoot that one in a review or not. Probably might, I don't know, but we'll have to see on that one. But we have loads of stuff lined up for y'all to see. We even have a grenade launcher that's going to fire a demilled grenade. So it's going to be really cool. We're looking forward to doing it. And having y'all watch all of them. And hopefully they do better. Hopefully they do better. Because the one we made, I think it's gotten up to 12,000 views, which isn't bad. But, you know, considering that most of their videos get up to 40 and 50,000 views, and this stream right now is sitting just live at 21,000 views right now, we're hoping that the next gun reviews we are able to make hit the algorithms better and more people are able to watch them and enjoy them. So that way we know that it's well worth our time, and a lot of people are really getting you know, a lot of enjoyment out of it. But still, even at 12,000 views, some of y'all loved it so much that, you know, y'all were just huge into just wanting to see more of them, and we will be making more of them in the future. But still, thank you so much once again, and we will make sure to take one from the chat. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and the question from the chat goes to Melissa Renee Swamphack of the LSA, in fact. This says, did you hear that Putin has been calling Odessa a Russian city?
Odessa? And who's been calling it a Russian city?
Putin.
Oh, he calls all of Ukraine a Russian province. So I would say that that's not that shocking to me, because he calls all of Ukraine Russian. He says it was stolen from them, you know, and it only existed because of Lenin, which is kind of a little stupid because, you know, Ukraine has existed many more times before Lenin. Also, another thing that's interesting to point out is that during the Russian Civil War, Ukrainian nationalists, and you know, let me say this really quickly. Let me disclaim this really quickly. When I say nationalist on this stream, it does not mean nationalist in a modern sense, like they're a Nazi. It just means someone who is proud of their nation or proud of their people existing as a nation. Nationalism and that word has been kind of contorted to mean something different now and be heavily politicized, but it's really just a term. But nevertheless, the Ukrainian nationalists during the Russian Civil War actually popped up and created a Ukrainian republic, which was then crushed by the Soviet Union later on, I believe around 1919. And then the Soviets, in the meantime, just started to invade Poland at the exact same time. It was literally a red wave sweeping back over Eastern Europe again. And so the Ukraine existed multiple times before that, but Ukraine existed then in 1917 to 1919, got crushed in 1919, and then after that, Lenin formed out of that to try and make it look like they weren't destroying the Ukrainians, but rather just, you know, making sure that they accepted the true ways of communism. They then reformed Ukraine into the Soviet Federative Republic of Ukraine or something like that. That was its name. And then it became a part of the Soviet Union through that. But nevertheless, that is something interesting to me to note, is that Ukraine did exist, and then Putin just throws all that history out, and then he goes, oh, look, it's Russian. It's like, no, it's not. It's not. But I will say this, though. In Odessa's defense, if any place in Ukraine had an argument to say that it was more Russian than Ukrainian, at least by founding, Odessa would largely be Russian, because its first founding was in 1792 during the times that Ukraine was controlled by the Russian Empire. It was actually a city that was founded by order of the Tsar. So technically, it is Russian by founding, but still in Ukraine, and its population throughout all of its history was majority Ukrainian and also Jewish. And then the Jews disappeared in World War II for obvious reasons, and then all that was left really was the Ukrainian population inside of Odessa. But still, it is Ukrainian land and also Ukrainian city through and through, except for its official founding, which was by order of the Tsar during the Russian Empire. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for sponsoring your own live chat. Really cool. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to KG, who throws in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, KG, for that massive support. And he says 2024 is the year of the wood dragon and the year of intelligence, compassion, and understanding. And let's see if that happens. And Merry Christmas, guys, and have a happy new year. And same to you, KG. Let's go.
And same to you, KG. Let's get it! And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, KG, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, Year of the Wood Dragon. Wow. You know something? Is that a fire-breathing dragon? Because if that dragon breathes fire, I think it's going to die. It's going to just catch on fire and burn like kindling. But nevertheless, very cool to hear that it's the Year of the Wooden Dragon. And also the Year of Intelligence, Compassion, and Understanding. All qualities that the Lee Spring Army has, so 2024 is going to be our year. I know it's going to be our year, but nevertheless, I hope that it happens. I know at least in the Lee Spring Army it will happen again, because it's been like that every single year, so next year is our year. And Merry Christmas to you, KG, and a Happy New Year. And thank you once again for being a longtime viewer of this channel, an old guard, and helping this channel to be possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jonesy, who puts in a $15 super chat. Well, I have a little bit of a voice crack there, but thank you very much, Jonesy, for that support. As you said, sorry, I've been a bit quiet, but I've been here nonetheless, and LSA forever.
And thank you so much, Jonesy, for the support. And yes, you've been a little quiet lately, but sometimes folks have got to, sometimes folks have just got to sit back a little bit and relax. And I completely understand that. But nevertheless, I'm glad that you're here with us tonight, active in the live chat, and also supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And of course, LSA forever. And thank you so much once again for making this channel possible and being one of our longtime viewers, Jonesy. You've been around for a long, long time, and it means a lot to us that folks like you have been here and helped to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to, let's see here, Ari Soini, who puts in the 10, once again, actually. And thank you very much for the third support of the night. And they said, bring on 2024 and Russia losing.
Hey, I can't disagree with you there, Ari. I'd say bring it on, and let's get their asses. I hope that the Ukrainians do win this next year, because while I don't want to, I'll be honest with y'all, this channel probably won't really go on much longer than the war, unless if the viewership just remained high on whatever we did, because there was a time where I was fine with doing this and keeping on doing it, but as the war has gone on, and I've said this a couple of times on stream, but I'm actually having a little bit of a hard time dealing with watching thousands of people die at this point. So I would kind of be okay with just moving on from this after the war was over. But beyond that, I will say, hopefully we will see the Ukrainians win, because the sooner they win, the better. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to KG yet again, who threw in a massive $200 donation this time. And dang, KG is trying to buy stock in the channel. I had to bring that old tired joke back out once again. But KG, thank you very much, seriously speaking. He said, just because.
And damn, KG, that is one hell of a just because right there. I've got to thank you for that. We always are greatly appreciative of folks who support the channel. Y'all make this channel a reality. And I've got to thank you for blowing us away tonight and supporting this channel massively. It means a lot to us. It helps us to keep this thing running. And of course, thank you so much once again. It's honestly mind-blowing. And thank you for being a member of the Lee Spring Army, KG, forever. And once again, making this thing possible. And thank you so much once again. Just because, man. Isn't that something? It's incredibly kind, I must say. And with that,
it is.
I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, Tristan1 said, yes, on your mental health to what I was saying. The thing is, though, is that it's less about mental health and more about doing something to help out, and also something that will contribute on into the future. I always, and I know in the modern world, mental health is always prioritized over everything, but I'm honestly one who goes the opposite and believes in putting mental health last, especially when it comes to doing the right things or the things that must be done. that's why we've continued running this channel for a while, because sometimes I actually have times where I just get overstressed to the point that I honestly think about just walking away from doing the channel. Don't really talk about it on air, and usually we don't like to, because it makes it sound like the channel's hanging on by a thread, which it isn't. But nevertheless, it is something that I always make sure to compel myself to do, because if we didn't do it, who's going to do it? People who are out there just to make AdSense, and that's not what we're about. The Fundraiser show that we're not about that. So that's why we always make sure to keep this thing running, because we also know that most of our viewers don't watch other channels. I think like 10% of y'all do, from what I saw in the statistics. 90% of y'all don't. So if we aren't delivering the news, nearly at least like 900,000 people a month are not getting news on the war in Ukraine from really any source for that matter. So we always want to make sure to keep this thing going, so that way, you know, we can keep delivering the news to y'all and make sure to keep y'all support high for the war. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Jonesy yet again, who puts in another 15. It says, do what you got to do, boys, but know that it's all said and done. You will be missed. And 2 to 4 hours a day is a lot, but that's how much of our days you have become.
And I thank you so much for the support, Jonesy, and helping this channel to keep on running. And this channel will not end. Of course, we're going to make sure to keep this thing running until the war ends, no matter what, hell nor high water. But when the war ends, I don't really know what we'll be doing. The honest truth is that it, like, you know, even if we wanted to make it on YouTube, we probably wouldn't go that far. That's the reality, because the gun review video only got 12,000 views. And while we can do a lot to improve it and probably do a lot to get it analytically higher up, it's still not going to get that high, probably. And that's something that concerns us a little bit, because if we can't do anything outside of the news of the war in Ukraine, we probably wouldn't be able to do this all the time anymore, because we wouldn't be able to support ourselves doing it. So we will probably have to move on to other stuff just for that reason, because, of course, it takes money to live. And if we aren't making any, at least to, you know, pay the bare necessities, which we probably wouldn't be able to, we would have to move on to other things. And so once the war ends, we probably keep covering it for maybe another 2 to 3 weeks, talking about the end of the war, the conclusion, maybe some additional info that came out, and then that would be it. The channel would most likely just round out, and that would be the conclusion of the Lee Spring Army. But beyond that, it will not end until then for sure. And we'll even have to see them, because if a lot of y'all really enjoyed everything else that we were doing on the side, like the gun reviews, or maybe even starting to move on into news in the United States, not political news, but more so things like what, and let me see, who would be a good person to describe? Like Tyler Oliveira, if y'all seen his channel, he just kind of goes into places and just shows what's going on. And I find that really interesting. I actually watch his videos a good bit, and it's always just interesting to watch him talk about things and explain them, because you find out that things are a lot more 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional than anyone even told you about situation here in the United States. And I find that very interesting, that kind of news coverage. And I think more news coverage like that is needed out there in the world. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bud, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, Bud, very much. He says, you guys do such a great job with the channel. It's super informative, and you guys make me laugh all the time. And please give a shout out to my buddy Gary. I'm telling you, he gets no respect around here. He gets no respect.
And a shout out to my boy Gary, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running as well, because folks like you have made this thing possible. And I gotta tell you, a lot of people get no respect around here. A lot of them don't. Honestly, respect is hard to come by, but it sounded like something disrespectful because of his name, but still, respect is hard to come by. It really is. And also, thank you so much for saying we make you laugh all the time. We try our best to make sure that everyone is always laughing and always taking the war lightly, although it's a very serious thing. And I've got to thank you so much for just the kind words and the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Badger Resistance, who puts in a 10, who says, Merry Christmas, Enforcers, and what do you recommend for the best gun size to conceal and carry for the first-time buyers? And what are your thoughts on the new Smith & Wesson pistol M&P 5.7?
Smith & Wesson M NP 57. Let me go find that thing. Let's take a look at this thing. $729. Not bad. Let me take a look at this thing. Huh. It's kind of like a Glock. I'm not going to lie. Like, it doesn't look like a Glock, but looking at it, it looks like it has no safety. It has, like, that trigger safety thing that the Glock has, and interesting. I'm going to be honest. I don't like the aesthetic. It kind of looks a little weird for a pistol.
I don't think the design's all the way there. I think the Glock might have it beat.
I think the Glock has it beat. I really think anything has this thing beat in the modern, like, 5.7 pistol market. Honestly, I think the FN 5.7 looks better than this thing. And let me go pull that up. Because if we're talking about 5.7 pistols, might as well just go get the original FN 5.7 that was made to shoot it. And that's this one right here. That's the FN 5.7, which was designed under the PDW, the Personal Defense Weapon Program, laid out by NATO in 1989. And I think they finally came up with the P90 and the FN 5.7 by around 1990, in 1991 to fill that in for FN. But I would just use this pistol. I think it looks better. It was made for the 5.7 cartridge. Well, this one was as well, but I think this one just looks better. And it's also a little bit more compact, although it probably suffers in the accuracy market for that. This one does carry, however, 22 rounds, which is fairly impressive. I don't know how many the FN 5.7 can carry, so let's go find out that info, because I've never owned an FN 5.7. Let's see here. Let's see. Feed system. So the FN 5.7 carries 25.7 rounds. So the M&P only has a 2-round advantage over the original 5.7. So going off of that, I would say, I mean, this thing's all right. Now, if I had to tell you a pretty good concealed carry pistol, that's a tough one, because I have a few, and I've found that I really like the older concealed carries better. And Matthew knows which one I'm about to say, because it's just, in my opinion, the best. It's the 1903 Pocket Hammerless. Now, don't go buy the reproductions. The reproductions are ludicrously expensive, like this one, which is $2.3 thousand. That is absolutely insanely priced. But let me go find you the just normal 1903 Pocket Hammerless. This thing was designed in 1903 by John Moses Browning. It shot 32 ACP, but if you don't like 32 ACP and you think you want more punching power, you can go for the 380, which by the stats, it really doesn't have more punching power. It's just a slightly larger caliber, but nevertheless, the model 1908 Pocket Hammerless pistol fires 380. The 1903 Pocket Hammerless fires 32 ACP. But beyond that, I find these to be very good concealed carry pistols. They have smooth corners, so they never get caught in your clothes. They have a double safety, meaning that they have the palm safety and also an actual mechanical safety, which you can see right there on this really crappy looking 1903. But beyond that, I find them to be very good, and they're pretty accurate, even for being most of them nearly like 100 years old or 70 years old. They're all really accurate. You can find them for like, and this is not a beginner price. I think like the cheapest ones you can find these days are like in the 700 to 800 range, and the higher quality ones that are more expensive, you find them in like the 1400 to 1200 range, but those are like the primo quality ones. But beyond that, these things are pretty nice. Let me make sure to get you all a good picture of one of these, and never get a beater. Get one that looks like this. That's a pretty decent 1903. They're small. You can fit them anywhere. They're called the Pocket Hammerless, and I have put them in my pocket before. They fit very nicely in there. And, you know, I think that's pretty good. And also, Bobo Uzala said, say you carried a 44 Magnum. That's the car carry. I put that in the glove box, but this thing is the one that I put in my pocket because it's just easier to carry. And also, I'm not one for, like, the holster things on your belt and whatnot, because those end up being pretty, you know, pretty jank. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like the little concealed carry holsters because they're always uncomfortable, at least to me. But that's what I would say to get for a concealed carry, a beginner one. And also the calibers are small too, so the recoil isn't that heavy, and they still have punching power. You know, some people are gonna tell you that 32. There are people out there who will tell you that a bullet entering someone will not take them down. I promise you, no matter what the size will be, I'm sure that they're not just going to like shrug it off because, you know, your body is not made to have bullets in it. You know, that's just like a natural, you know, no-brainer to me at least. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support, and I hope I've been able to help out in that the best I can, although, you know, I'm a little archaic with the carries. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Rangers Rule, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And he says, thank you, Enforcers.
And thank you for enjoying the channel and helping it to keep running and making this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops, the Psyops, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that support. And also, good night to you, Trister Wannasees, leaving for the night. Good night. And also, Psyops said, I actually read the Love books. Now I'm petrified. And I must admit, Psyops, you're scaring me already. I'm trying to, like, brush through this real quick and make sure there's nothing spicy in it. Let's see. I don't know what this means, to be honest with you, Psyops. It sounds a little bit fishy. And you know what? I'm going to send this over to the Enforcer because he's going to actually review this himself and see what he thinks.
Now,
let's see what he thinks.
I won't be able to read that off on air because I'm getting the references, particularly for the reason, and I hate to even admit this, Matthew and me ended up having to look into that category recently because of something in the background. We're like, what the hell is that? And I gotta tell you, yeah, they're weird books. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm, you know, not dissing anyone who reads them, but, you know, like, what the hell? I mean, it's like, you know, that's a little weird to me. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support. And, yeah, I want to go back, and I'm actually petrified as well, even after I read them, because, like, you don't realize them, but the books are, like, poorly written, and on top of that, they're just weird sounding. You know, it's like putting that stuff down into writing, it's like, who in the hell is actually like thinking this stuff and going, why, yes, I need to write this in a line. And Renee loves at what books? You don't even want to know. You don't even want to know. But sadly, I had to look into one, and I was like, holy hell. I was like, this is something else. But nevertheless, thank you for the support. And I hope I was able to address the super chat, at least directed at you, so that way everyone else doesn't have to know what that is. But goodness gracious, I mean, and someone said, don't be a prude. Hey man, listen, I don't judge, but listen, the one I had to read, and it wasn't like assigned reading or anything, I was just like, let me figure out what this is about. Because, you know, it like popped. I'm not even going to explain like the details of how that popped up. We were like, what the hell is, like, we just ended up reading one, and I was like, yikes. I was like, I'm not being a prude or anything. It's just that they're really weirdly written to the point. It's like, this almost sounds like, in better, just lack of better words, pervy. You know, it's like James May outside of the cat cafe in Japan with the Japanese guy. He's like, oh no, that's kind of pervy, and it just seemed like that. I was like, that's just odd. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support, Sabs. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Captain Kirk, who puts in a 10. And it's good to see you, Captain. He says, reindeer.
And reindeer blade. I don't know what that's about, but hey, I like reindeer too. And apparently it's raining deer, like raining men. But with it, thank you so much once again for the support in helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for you, Captain Kirk, we wouldn't be able to be here and stream right now, blade. And with it, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a 10. It says, great job on the Christmas address to the LSA, and also I hope you passed your passed the first semester of law school.
Oh, and I thank you so much for the support. And thank you, Cliff H, for wishing us the best, and thank you so much for enjoying the Christmas address. And also, we don't know. We only know when the next semester of law school starts, and that is honestly one thing that is stressing me out greatly. Is everything involved with that. Honestly, it is a massive, like, stressor to me. But hopefully I did well. I don't know. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Cliff. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Gilly Flower, who puts in a 10. It says, Merry Christmas.
And thank you so much, Gilly Flower, blade, for the support in helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who helped to make this thing passable. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to help this channel to keep on running. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address it well. And with it, we are on to the next one.
And we have another one from Walter A. Lakota Jr., who puts in the 10. And he says, me again. And one thing to take into consideration of the ship sunk or damaged in Feodosia is the harbor bottom. And if it's mud, then it'll take probably about 2 to 3 months to remove the ships.
Thank you for the support, Walter, and throwing that in, because I was actually considering like it would probably take 2 to 3 months to get it out of there, because I believe it took that long for the British to refloat the sunken German ships in Scapa Flow to scrap them for war materials. At least that's what I remember, and that's what I was basing off. So it looks like you and me were basing it probably off the same thing, or something similar at least. But with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Richard Philpott, who puts in a 10 and says, for the Matt Rolex Fund. I'm telling you what, that's a hell of a fund right there. To be honest with you, Richard, like, I know it's a joke, by the way, but I would honestly never have a Rolex. I'm not into that kind of stuff. That's not really my thing. I know some people like that kind of stuff. They like the sort of status symbol watches, but to me, I'm actually sporting a nice Casio G-Shock. It's called the Casio, the one I actually got for Christmas, by the way. Very nice watch indeed. And this one is actually fitting my wrist, which I was very thankful for, because I saw this watch for a long time. I was like, I would really like one of those, and it just happened to be under the tree. But thank you, Richard, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support to the Rolex Fund. I have to be honest as well. I try to not be materialistic like that. Some people are going to say, yeah, he was wearing a polo. We get our polos on discount. I get them for like $15 at Dillard's. So, you know, you know, find me if you want, but I'm getting my polos cheap. I'm not spending like $90 on a polo. That's ridiculous. It's just a shirt. But beyond that, I'm not really materialistic like that either, because I feel like people buy Rolexes just for the sole point that they're a Rolex. Like, it's a watch. Like, every watch will read the time. It's really just about, you know, what has the greater status symbol. And it's kind of like people who, like, buy Ferraris and stuff like that. It's, like, what's the point? Like, I'm not trying to prove myself to other people much at all, you know, and I'm just not into, but I do thank you for the kindness of it, though, and wanting us to have a Rolex. That is incredibly kind and generous of you. But at the same time, I always don't want to be materialistic, because people who are materialistic are very shallow, and I'm just, you know, I just don't like it, because we have ended up running up on materialistic people, and I got to tell y'all, they are truly the most shallow people you will ever meet. The only thing they care about is trying to have status symbols to impress other people. That's their entire life. They have nothing outside of it. And I don't really know how people find joy in that kind of a existence, just trying to find things to one-up the people around them. But nevertheless, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the support. I didn't mean to make a lecture on my views of materialism or anything, but I do thank you for the Rolex Fund. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from KG yet again. And KG, huge thanks to you. You've thrown in a ton of support tonight. Hey! And I think it's fair to say you're the largest super chatter of the night, so huge thanks to you for supporting the channel. And he says, like you guys, and remind me of my own boys, super brave to put yourselves out in the public like this. And I have to say, KG, thank you very much for the compliment, by the way. And I got to admit, I didn't understand what I was getting into when we put ourselves out here in the public like this. I don't even think the Enforcer did either, and he was here a lot longer than me because he started the channel, and I just happened to show up later and help out. But yeah, you learn how many nuts there are out there, and you start learning, geez, like, I didn't know there was these type people just running around in society. But I guess if they'd be anywhere, they'd be lurking on the internet, the trolls, the bots, and the haters alike. But luckily, we have a ton of really good people in the Leaf Spring Army that are here tonight in the chat that make up for the bad ones that happen to be mixed in there as well. So a ton of good, and also sadly a lot of bad to go with it. But the good outdoes the bad, I think, or at least I like to think. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much, KG, for the support, and thank you for saying that we remind you of your own boys. And that is incredibly kind of you to say. And also, it is pretty. I wouldn't say brave. Honestly, I think it's kind of foolish, because people on the internet outside the Leaf Spring Army are very sick, mean, twisted people. Like, really, I say the Leaf Spring Army is the greatest community out there because I don't even really like dealing with any other communities out there on YouTube. They're just full of mean, angry people. Most of them are. And the Leaf Spring Army is like the skimming off the top of the best people on the internet, in my opinion. Like, that's my take. And it's just a cruel world out there, you know. Like, we try and help out Ukraine and support them, and in exchange, people dox us and harass us constantly and everything. Like, I mean, it's still going on. We just ignore it at this point because it's now just a fact of life. But when you really sit there and think about it, like, the sickest people in the world or on the internet, like, they all come here because they're not accepted anywhere else. And then a lot of great people get on the internet too, and y'all end up here. But it was, I honestly feel like it was kind of foolish at this point, but also good because we've helped out in a great way. Like, it doesn't matter what people say or do against us. Nothing's going to stop the fact that the Lee Spring Army raised $1.4 million for Ukraine. People can hate on us all we want, but they didn't help out Ukraine hardly worth a squat. We did. So they can be mad and cry and everything all they want all day because, you know, it's not going to change anything. And on top of that, most of them are just loudmouths that get off on the idea that they are ruining someone's life somehow. And honestly, you know, that's pathetic. Like, that's the only way you can put it. It's just pathetic. But beyond that, I'm happy to be here, even if we are constantly being harassed. I'm happy to be here because we've been able to help out in ways that I would have never thought would have been possible for just one person to start a movement, pretty much. Well, actually, both of us, Matthew and me, started a movement like this to get $1.4 million raised for Ukraine. And so, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support, KG, and the kind words. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Zyper Sniper 1 once again, who puts in the 10 and says, thanks for all the congratulations, and when I get married, then I'm going to surprise my fiance with a Hawaii honeymoon. And please give a question to the chat. And he said, I forgot to add that Hawaii is our dream trip, so please add that when you read the super chat.
And
I did. I remembered.
And also, really cool. Maybe you'll see Walter A. Lakota out there. Maybe. Well, he could tell you a cool fun fact or maybe a cool place to visit. But beyond that, congratulations again. And I hope y'all have a fun time on y'all's honeymoon. And also, congratulations once again. That is absolutely amazing to hear. Because finding the right person, for anyone for that matter, is incredibly hard. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. Practically impossible. Well, I don't want to put anyone down, but you know, nearly practically impossible. It is like finding a needle in the haystack. And I'm so happy to hear that y'all were able to find each other. I hope y'all have an amazing time together, and best of luck to both of y'all. We are proud of you for being able to accomplish such a high goal and a high achievement. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Barry Woodward, who puts in an 8 and says, a power of the spirit and protector of the soldiers abroad for guarding the U.S. and thus the LSA. And 2024 is just days away, and pull up your bootstraps, LSA.
And LSA, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And well, luckily, the new year is only a few years away. Well, a few days away. Whoops. Thank you so much for once again hoping that everyone has a happy new year. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Robert Harrington, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer Matt, can you give an update of the Christmas Eve fundraiser, please, and thanks?
Yes, we can. Let me go grab that real quick because it was way up, even higher than what I said on the Christmas address. So let me go to our videos. Man, I love that intro. That was a very cool looking intro right there. But let's see here. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on, I didn't. Dang it. 1 second. Let me back out. Let me go grab it because it's not the video, it's the live stream that we did. So let's see here. It was only 2 hours and 4 minutes long. That's actually crazy. But it got, wow, actually it got up to $13,686.
Dang.
What a fundraiser right there. That is crazy. Like, damn, that's even higher than I thought it was, because I think we said 11.3 on the Christmas address, and then tonight I said 13.3. It's actually 13.7 nearly, almost 14,000. Insane. That is absolutely incredible, and I got to congratulate all of y'all so much once again for getting that number possible. That's incredible, and certainly helping out a soldier that is getting helped by Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. And so thank you so much once again for asking for us to see that, because that even blows me away. I didn't even think the number was that high, but thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mike Subzinski, who puts in a 5 as well and says, "This is my first day for May God bless you. I am from Michigan and I was learned, but I came to your video."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And also, thank you for being from Michigan. Michigan is a pretty interesting little state. Maybe one day we'll get to go up there and check the place out. But for now, sadly, we will not be able to. But still, I got to thank you so much once again for being here for the first time and also supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Herp Derp NV, who puts in a 5 and says, "Would you consider doing live stream hood reviews after the war, like visiting the RIP t-shirt store and reviewing the Detroit Biggie bags?"
Oh, man. We would, honestly, that would kind of be fun to do. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, if you're talking about going there in person, I feel like we probably have to have, like, an inn locally to get there in person to make sure that we're, like, not, ruffling any feathers or going to a really bad side of town where there may be an active gang or anything like that that would, cap us if we came in. But I would do that if everyone really liked that kind of stuff. I would do it. But still, thank you for the support. Thank you for asking an interesting question, Herp Derp. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the last one goes to Jeff Henaway, who puts in a 2 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Jeff, like always, for that support. And we just had one more super chat come in, and this one is from Yet KG again. I think I just messed up the wording on that. If that made any sense, you weren't going crazy. That was me misspeaking. But KG put in a 20 and said, "YouTube censors me for providing a good quote, and read the chat for a full quote."
And thank you for the support, KG. Let's see. Oh, here we go. KG put it in right there. He said, "There's an old saying, doing the right thing isn't always easy, but occasionally it is necessary." And I agree with that. It is very tough to do the right thing in this world. Everyone wants you to do the wrong thing, mostly to try and promote their own self-interests. But we always try and make sure to do the right thing no matter what it is, no matter the repercussions, no matter how much people like it or not. We always want to do the right thing. And I got to thank you so much for giving us that little quote, because it is certainly true in our experience. Is a lot of people, and another thing you find out is that a lot of people just know, like, let me say this really quickly, because this is something I see a lot. People say that, and this is a common statement in America on one group, and I'm about to expand it into everything, so don't take it as a political statement. But a lot of people in America say that cops are corrupt, and cops look out for each other and will allow each other to do wrong things, and then will protect each other from any repercussions. I hate to do this as a shock to everyone, but that's everywhere. Like, that's not just cops. That's your managers at your business. That is politicians in Washington. That is everyone everywhere. And we found out that that's the case on YouTube as well, because even if what someone is doing is wrong and you end up defending yourself from them, people will come to their defense just because they are connected with them a little bit more, and for that reason they don't care if what they did was wrong and they're suffering the consequences of their actions. They're just going to defend them because they like them a little bit more, instead of doing what's right. They are going to do what's wrong because everything's like that, and that's something that makes doing the right thing incredibly hard, is because you have these corrupt cliques that really are just buddy systems out there and everything, and they want to make sure that you are doing what they want instead of doing what's right. And so I would have to agree with you completely, KG. That quote is 100% accurate. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it's time for us to get on into the live chats, but due to time constraints, we're probably going to only be able to get to about 3 to 5 of them. And so with that, we're on to the first one.
All right, and of course up first we had the Morse code decoders of the stream, and tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, Toxic Bananas, Tight Lines LSO, and also David Millsaps. And they said the Morse code tonight says Russian forces are not making the landing, but the Ukrainians are, and long live the LSA.
That's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. While the Russians aren't making the landing ship, the Ukrainians are certainly landing a missile on top of it. And I got to thank y'all for getting that Morse code message correct. Y'all been getting it right for 671 days of the war, and that is absolutely amazing. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for deciphering that Morse code message, and we are now on to the first live chat of the night.
And this one goes to WNNR 1957, who says, is there any way that Ukraine can cripple Russia's oil exports? That would severely hurt Russia's way to fund this war, and what are your thoughts?
They probably could try. It's going to be a little tough, though, because most of Russia's oil exports are now happening over land. The best thing they could do is try and blow up rail corridors into China or heading further south towards India. That's really their best bets. But beyond that, it would be pretty tough for them to pull that off. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the second live chat of the night.
And this one goes to Bernard Rubin, who says, could Ukraine gain air superiority with their F-16s, or am I overdosing on hopium?
They could get air superiority using the F-16s by destroying the ground radar sites. So, no, you're not on hopium. It is entirely possible. Although the skies over Ukraine will still be dangerous, they'll be far less dangerous than they are right now. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this is actually the last one that we have. So, unfortunately, would you like to do the whole thing?
And so we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is, it is what it is. Who says, could Ukraine hit the locks that go from the Black Sea to the Caspian Sea, slowing supplies from Iran?
Can you read that one again?
They said, could Ukraine hit the locks that go from the Black Sea to the Caspian Sea, slowing supplies from Iran?
Possibly, but I wouldn't really be sure. I don't really know a lot about that canal. I'll have to look into it a little bit more to see if I can get some information on it, but it is possible. But I can't really speak more about it than that because I don't really know enough information to give an exact analysis on that. So largely I'm going to have to declare ignorance. But with that, it is the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for all of y'all tonight, the day after Christmas. And of course, I have to thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to help this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army never dies.
And good night, folks. We'll see you all tomorrow. And once again, thank you all for another great stream. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and good night.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.